Chapter 41, The Purchase Channel. At Jinling West Road, number 188, there was a store called Forever Jewels. This was the name of the jewelry shop that Chen Jin opened. He did not name it himself, as he had no ability to give it a good name. It was He Li who came up with the name after a round of discussions. On Chu Wanting's side, her renovation process was rapidly progressing. After all, that shop used to be a jewelry store before, and it had facilities that were ready for use. She knew that Chen Jin was eager for the shop's opening, and she wanted the renovations to be completed within half a month. Therefore she had decided to do some minor repairs and add-ons. The basic setup of the shop remained unchanged. She would replace a portion of the counter, redo the floor tiles, and resand the walls. The hanging lamp fixture need not be replaced, only cleaned. Finally, she would install the plaque that had already been ordered and was being manufactured in the factory. The renovations would certainly be completed within half a month, and would only cost a maximum of about $200,000. It was both time and money saving. Chen Jin was very satisfied and thought it was an awesome plan. Unknown to him, Chu Wanting's real intention was to help him save money. The young boss had put her in such an important position and trusted her so much. One had to know that the annual rent of the shop was nearly $5 million and the profit margin was already very slim. If she did not try her best to help the boss save some money, his startup would fail not long after the jewelry shop opened. She would feel terrible if he had to pay such a steep learning cost. Therefore, she would try her best to save costs anywhere she could. The jewelry shop was scheduled to be opened either at the end of this month or the start of next month. However, the sourcing of the goods remained a question. There was no sign of a single gemstone or jewelry. Without proper stock, how would they open the shop at the end of this month? Therefore, she had to discuss with the boss and constantly remind him to confirm the purchase channel in advance. Otherwise, there would be no time. She called the boss and asked him to come over. The two of them discussed this issue in the office located on the third story. Boss, do you have any purchase channels for the jewelry? Or an agreement with the jewelry manufacturers to collaborate, or signed the contract for them to be your suppliers? Purchase? Collaborate? Chen Jin was stumped by all of these questions. He shook his head. Nope, I didn't really organize any of this stuff yet. He was so busy recently. How would he have the time for that? Wanting said, it's urgent that you go and discuss it. Boss, if the stocks are insufficient, we definitely can't launch our opening this month. And it may not even be possible to do it by next month. Chen Jin shook his and said honestly, I'm not too familiar with this. He knew nothing of the jewelry business. He was a total idiot regarding things like purchasing, collaboration with jewelry manufacturers, pricing, and the industry outlook. He could only say, Auntie Chu, don't be like that. I'll transfer the money to you and you go talk to the jewelry manufacturer about the purchase channel. I'll hand over this entire matter to you, how about that? He planned to task all matters to the professionals and only delegate. You want me to go for negotiations on the purchase channels? Chu Wanting was shocked. The boss actually tasked her with such an important matter? It was supplies that could involve millions of dollars and he had no worries about her character. She was slightly touched, and found it slightly funny. The young boss really was like a blank sheet of paper. He lacked working and social experience, and he was not mature or seasoned. Overall, he seemed a little innocent and pure. However, it was certainly possible for her to do the negotiations for the purchase channels. After all, she had been in this business for over 20 years and knew every business link and channel like the back of her hand. No one knew the contacts and know how to access the industry, its dirty laundry, and its unwritten rules like she did. It would be much better for her to attend the negotiations than the young boss. There would be countless landmines and traps avoided, not to mention the steep learning price. However, there were some things that she had to declare in advance. Boss, if you truly trust my character, I can help you attend the negotiations for the purchase channels. However, I hope that you have absolute trust in me. Of course, I will give you detailed accounts of every bill of items and every invoice. I can confirm that every expenditure will be backed by hard evidence. I hope that I can get your complete trust. Only then can I rest assured and boldly negotiate on your behalf for the purchase channels. She meant that she hoped Chen Jin would give her as much power as he could so that she had the freedom to exercise a greater range of motion during the negotiations. Only then could she have the guts to go and negotiate. Chen Jin understood her unspoken demands and nodded. No problem. Auntie Chu, I trust your character. I'll entrust you with the entire matter of the purchase channel. After some consideration, he said, how about this, is $5 million enough? Is $5 million worth of stocks enough to support the opening of the shop? Our shop is too big. $5 million worth of stocks may not be ample. But there's about $800,000 left from the renovation budget. We can adjust our supply items. It should be more or less sufficient. For example, reducing the proportion of gold jewelry and increasing the display counters for the silver jewelry. Simply put, she just had to purchase less gold jewelry. Okay, Auntie Chu. I'll transfer $5 million to you. If the stocks are still insufficient, then I'll think of something. Chen Jin wanted to say that the gold beside the pile of riches in the camping ground weighed a total of 1.55 tons. He could not wait to liquidate them. All right, thank you boss. Her face was full of smiles, and she felt physically invigorated. She first entered the jewelry business more than 20 years ago and had much experience participating in many sales. Her numerous first-hand contacts with countless clients had given her many precious and rich experiences. Today was also the first time that she had gotten the ultimate authority to direct the operations of a large-scale jewelry shop. She could do things according to her own ideas and implement her own methods, which she could not do in the past. All in all, she could now make changes to what used to be unchangeable. At this point, her mind was filled with countless ideas and her body was full of energy. With overflowing excitement, she could not help but reveal many industry secrets to the young boss. The so-called 9,999 gold is only a speculative concept. There is no gold on the market with a 99.99% purity. Even if there was, the price would be astronomical. Jewelry shops would tinker with the 999 gold to make it appear brighter. Essentially, this is a low trick to bamboozle the people. Now, it's more profitable to be a lesser-known unbranded jewelry store than one that is highly branded. As an unbranded store, we have many choices regarding our supplies and greater pricing power. A branded jewelry store is primarily selling their brand names, they can only purchase supplies from selected jewelry manufacturers. For example, the previous Lu Fu jewelry store here purchased gold at a price that was $3 to $5 more expensive per gram as compared to the typical unbranded store. Yet, its gold quality was similar. This caused us to have no advantage when it came to pricing. The brand was not as good as Long Fengxiang or Zhou Chongsheng. The store was neither here nor there, not dead or alive, why not just become a totally unbranded store? In recent years, as people's aesthetic tastes changed, it is now much more profitable to be involved in silver jewelry. The cost of silver is low. Industrial silver cost about $3 per gram, but one piece of silver jewelry can sell for $200 to $300 with added value. The material cost is now merely loose change and the profits are higher than gold. Chu Wanting rambled on happily. She imparted almost everything from her knowledge, including all the industry secrets, to Chen Jin. Chen Jin could only repeatedly nod in speechless amazement. He never imagined that the jewelry industry could have such deep waters. At the same time, he felt extremely lucky to have hired a very knowledgeable professional to manage the shop. If he were to rush in and act blindly, it was certain that he would have to foot a steep learning price at every stage. As compared to the potential losses that he would incur were he to act on his own, the monthly salary of $60,000 that he paid Auntie Chu was nothing. Everyone knew that the most important thing in the 21st century was talent. He had also heard of the saying, buying a dead horse for 1,000 pieces of gold. However, when the time came to discuss compensation and benefits, people always thought of how to save money first, how to get the most while spending the least. They would talk about passion and striving hard but not about practical stuff. With this attitude and style, they would not achieve big goals. Chen Jin had a hunch, even if he did not take the gemstones and jewelry from the campground to sell in the shop, with Auntie Chu's experience and ability, the shop would be able to make a profit. It would not make a loss. But, he also felt skeptical. Why did she not open her own jewelry store when she was so capable? For 12 years when the economy was booming, I earned more than $300,000. But that year, my husband demanded that I make 3 meals for him daily, and my workplace was 10 kilometers from my home. As she explained, her gaze became empty and depressed. Chen Jin stopped asking. Chapter 42, Repairing the Supercalculator. On the 18th of October, in the deep of night on Earth, Chen Jin was busy attending to a very important matter at the camping ground in Hai'er Fa. Actually, he had been busy because of this matter for more than a week. He sacrificed 2 to 3 hours of sleep every night for it. What caused this intense dedication? It was repairing the supercalculator that the robots transported back from the city of Therese. The supercalculator that had been in City Hall was once used for the purpose of managing the entire city of Therese. From Dali, Chen Jin understood that in this world, this supercalculator that could compute up to 100 trillion could not even be described as super. It was simply a large machine at best. It had an outdated structure and performance capability, and it consumed too much energy. It was a product that was outdated by more than 100 years. Although according to Chen Jin's standards, a calculator that had a computing ability of up to a maximum of 100 trillion could definitely be termed as a supercalculator. It totally trashed any large calculator on Earth. Of course, to Chen Jin, this calculator that consumed 100 kilowatts with a combined size of 5 refrigerators was ahead of Earth's technology by at least 20 years. Chen Jin planned to repair it and let it finish some of his work. However, even if he did understand how the calculator worked, did he really have the ability to repair it? Speaking frankly, Chen Jin did not know how it worked. He had never come into contact with one and was a total layman. He was, however, rather proficient at assembling the components of a desktop. The desktop at home was wholly the result of his DIY efforts. He understood the process of putting various hardware together like the back of his hand. The computers in Higher Fa were similar to the ones on Earth because they too had the major hardware like a motherboard, CPU, internal memory storage, and a hard drive. Both types of computers shared a lot of similarities. The supercalculator was based on a similar home computer, but was heaped with a great amount of nuclear power, internal memory storage, and hard drives. Naturally, the components that made up the supercalculator were more complex. Only a minority of professionals could understand how those components worked. But Chen Jin could do similar tasks such as changing the CPU, the internal memory storage, and the hard drives. He was not worried about messing up the calculator. After charging the supercalculator, areas that were okay would emit a green light, and areas with faults would emit a red light together with a faint buzz. It was made with a fault-checking design. So, according to the red light indicators, Chen Jin took down 13 faulty CPUs, 35 internal memory storage units, and 6 hard drives. In addition, he removed 2 modular motherboards before finally eliminating all of the red light indicators. However, the supercalculator still refused to start. Unfortunately, it was because the power supply was insufficient. Even the largest output from the cable connected to his home was not enough to satisfy its lowest energy requirement needed to switch on. Chen Jin could only continue to remove its CPUs, internal memory storage units, and the like, except for the remaining hard drives, to reduce its power consumption. After almost half of its original number of modular motherboards and CPUs had been removed, the supercalculator finally started up, the movement of the cooling fan causing a whizzing sound to be heard. This is too awesome! Chen Jin was so excited that he quickly jumped up. He had actually repaired the supercalculator. After 2 minutes, it finished starting up. Chen Jin sat in front of a slightly curved 49-inch screen. Holding the mouse in one hand, he prepared to operate the calculator. As Chen Jin could not understand a single character on the screen, he could only allow Ali to interpret from his side. Whenever he did not understand something, he would ask it. "Master, do you see the logo of the little girl on the table? She is the artificial intelligence, AI, management system of this calculator. You can put on the interconnected smart goggles and communicate with the AI management system via voice chat. It is not necessary to employ traditional methods of interaction with a computer. If she does not understand the language you speak, I will send a Chinese language package to her." Dali also explained that this calculator was installed with wireless signals for receiving and sending. Okay. Chen Jin knew that in Dali's opinion, the motion of using the mouse to operate the calculator was somewhat unsophisticated. He should put on the smart goggles and awaken the AI management system before proceeding with voice chat interaction. Thus, he put on the goggles and connected with the supercalculator. A humongous screen appeared in front of his eyes, displaying many 3D stereoscopic icons. In one of the icons, there was a 12 or 13-year-old girl with blonde hair who seemed to be in a deep sleep. She wore a princess-style dress, white over-the-knee socks, and princess shoes with pink bows on them. She had fine and adorable features and was currently sleeping soundly. Chen Jin shifted his vision behind her and saw a prompt box by her side. "Does this mean awaken?" Dali leaned over and said, My master, it means to awaken yes/no. Awaken. Chen Jin stretched out his right hand and selected the virtual yes button on the left-hand side. The cute and delicate little girl moved. With a tremble of her eyelashes and a chirp, she slowly awoke. She stood up and faced Chen Jin. A string of words appeared by her side, signaling a successful startup. However, after getting a good look at Chen Jin, the iconic and adorable smile on the blonde girl suddenly morphed into an extremely stern expression. With a chilling voice, she said, Chinese facial features are detected on the user. The user does not possess the authority to utilize this AI system. Leave, immediately. AI system will issue an intruder alarm. Chen Jin was astounded. Was this racial discrimination? Even Ace could be like this? At that moment, Dali let a ray of green light flash over its electronic eyes. Many lines of code seemed to be included in that ray of green light. The signal light on its chest also flashed once. Intruder alarm has been deleted. You have gained the authority to come into contact with the system. Please enter your account password to log in and access the system. An iconic smile appeared on the little girl's face once again. The signal light on Dali's chest flashed again. Master, you've gained the highest authority to use the system. Please use it freely. The little girl's attitude changed again. Not to mention her reference to Chen Jin as master, her voice also became sweet and childish. Chen Jin turned to Dali and asked in surprise, Dali, what did you do? Dali said, I broke into her hyper-security system. How did you come to have this function? You're not a computer hacker, you're only a normal robot. Chen Jin was extremely shocked. Maybe a god-level hacker spirit had been sealed within Dali's body? This is a function gifted to us by the virus reboot, master. Oh, Chen Jin understood. He had never thought that the virus reboot could bring about such an awesome function. It could actually make a cold and arrogant little girl call him master in an affectionate and sweet manner. Chen Jin let Dali send over a Chinese language package. After receiving the entire package, he allowed the little girl to translate the entire operational interface into Chinese, which he was mostly able to read. Then, he requested that she talk to him in Chinese. She followed all of his instructions. Chen Jin said, do a self-introduction and let me understand you. Yes, master. I'm called Alice 1507. I am the AI management system for the city of Therese. I am fully responsible for the power, water supply, traffic, medical, education, and security monitoring systems in this city. I am an AI assistant of critical importance to the residents of the city of Therese. Because of my existence, the residents lived happy, convenient, and safe lives. They called me Alice the Little Angel. I provide a higher level of support to the residents than even Mr. Mayor. Master, don't you think that Alice is very useful? Alice pursed her small cherry-like mouth and displayed two cute dimples as she played with her two pigtail plates. Chapter 43, Guo Yan lost her job. On Saturday the 19th, during lunch, He Li said, Son, go to the Lotus District if you are free in the afternoon. See how clean the 4 apartments are. You haven't been there for 2 months. Chen Jin raised his head. Mom, why don't you let Dad go? I don't really want to manage those apartments anymore. His allowance used to come from the 4 apartments. It was his primary income as part of the elderly devouring generation. Now that he had his own business, he did not really want the rental fees from the apartments. It was because he said that he wanted to be independent and not take a single cent from his parents anymore, or else he was a dog. For example, he received more than $20,000 in rent last month, which was deposited into his Alipay account. He gave it all to Mom. Son, your dad has never gone to those apartments before. You're still more familiar with this aspect. Just make a trip there. She added, as for the rent that had been collected, you can keep it temporarily. Take it as a loan from me for your startup fund. You can return the money back after your startup is successful and profitable. How about that? Chen Jin looked at Mom, and saw that her eyes were turned up to the heavens. She did not seem to mean what she said. He impatiently forced a smile. Mom, you definitely have the final stage of pamper the son disease. After a period of time where one did not give some allowance to her son, or even just some random thing, one would feel as if her son would be living a hard life or starving. One would not have peace of mind unless she forced him to accept something. She would feel empty and lost. Chen Jin's lazy nature admittedly contributed a part to his past development into the elderly devouring generation. However, it must also be said that Mom's overindulgence contributed partly to the problem too. Okay, I'll make a trip to the Lotus District. In the future, I won't transfer the rentals to you every month, I'll transfer it every 6 months instead. Is that okay? He nodded repeatedly. Sure. Receiving it once a year would be best. Around 3 p.m., Chen Jin arrived in his car at the first story of building number 6 in the Lotus District. Taking the elevator up to the 8th story, he opened the door of room 801 to conduct the first inspection of the most worrisome apartment. Clack. After opening the door, he found that the reality was much better than the scenario his mind had thought up. The floorboard was rather clean. The rubbish in the room was on the lesser side. There were no topless strange men lying on the living room sofa. Besides an empty fruit plate and some stacks of books related to programming, there was nothing on the glass coffee table. Chen Jin's expression became much better. He gave a rare praise. It's okay. You've maintained a decent level of hygiene. He need not call the housekeeping company. Li Kai smiled, landlord, we came up with a duty roster. There's someone cleaning every day and going down to dispose the rubbish. Chen Jin nodded. Continue to maintain this. However, Li Kai held him back. After some hemming and hawing, he said, landlord, there's something that I still need to discuss with you. My friends have not yet moved out. They've only moved into the bedroom. Now the 3 of us share a bed. I don't know if you'll agree to us sharing the rental together. Chen Jin's eyes grew wide. How does anyone sleep with 3 people squeezed onto a bed? When it feels difficult, I'll sometimes sleep for a bit on the sofa in the living room. I don't oppose to what you guys are doing. There is nothing on the contract that says how many people can stay in a room. But, you must be alert of your safety, especially when it comes to electricity. Don't bring in too many electronics that use a large amount of power. If there are hidden dangers that compromise your safety, I'll still require 2 or 3 people to leave. Li Kai repeatedly promised, we'll keep a strict eye on it. I promise there won't be any problems. Chen Jin shook his head. He realized that Li Kai was a very loyal friend. There were frequently friends of various sorts who all came to throw themselves upon him for help. Li Kai was never afraid of them, and would try his best to arrange things for them such as driving them around for free, treating them to meals, and introducing jobs to them. He took care of all aspects. Recently, the rent in the city center was still rising. In order to help them save money, he would rather sleep on the sofa at night than suggest that they should look for their own rooms. People like this were a rarity in today's society. In room 902, located a story above, the same 5 girls still lived there. Cleanliness and hygiene were well maintained. He could not pick on any issues. Chen Jin nodded, and with a couple more glances, he got ready to leave for home. Suddenly Guo Yan stopped him. Brother Chen, can I discuss something with you? She bit her lip. The expression on her face was awkward and distressed. Chen Jin looked at her with confusion and asked, what is it? I've not paid this month's rent. Can you give me a few more days' allowance? I'll pay you once I have money. Guo Yan pinched her fingers uneasily. She lowered her red face and didn't dare to look directly into Chen Jin's eyes. She seemed hard-pressed, as if this was something embarrassing to talk about. It's okay, there's no hurry to pay the rent. You can pay anytime. I don't lack that bit of rent money. Of course Chen Jin knew that Guo Yan did not pay her rent this month. She had always been the most proactive in paying her rent. On the 15th of each month, she would actively transfer the money to his account without him having to send any reminders. She was always the first one to pay rent. She seemed to have met with some financial difficulties recently and was hard-pressed for money to the extent that she did not even have $700 for rent. She had taken special note to send him a message regarding this matter, and today she mentioned it again. Thank you, Brother Chen. Guo Yan thanked him over and over. Her eyes rapidly became red and her shoulders trembled as she could not help but cry softly. Chen Jin asked, Guo Yan, what's wrong? Did something bad happen? Although he had only interacted with her a few times, his impression of her was that she was a cheerful, positive, hardworking, and thrifty girl. She was a good girl. However, she was crying today. Why was she like this? Guo Yan lost her job. Recently, she's been searching non-stop for jobs. Lu Xiaoxia, who was standing off to the side, came over to explain that Guo Yan met with an unforeseen circumstance at work and was dismissed by her company. Guo Yan was in the business of real estate sales. Her capability was not too bad. For a few months in a row, her monthly salary was over $10,000. However, there were sudden cataclysmic changes in the property market in September. The government announced many various policies to limit the buyers so as to cool the rapid bubble that was forming. This caused the traded volume to fall steeply. All occupations related to real estate sales immediately entered a tough period. The real estate agency that Guo Yan worked in suffered from bad performance. As the future of the property market looked bleak, they firmly decided to reduce their losses by dismissing a number of staff. Unfortunately, Guo Yan was in the list of staff marked for dismissal. Chen Jin asked with concern, "So you lost your job and you're unemployed right now?" Wiping the corners of her eyes, Guo Yan said with a thin voice, "Yeah, I've been searching recently. I should find something within the next 2 days or so." She had started working full-time without even finishing high school. In fact, she had 6 to 7 years of working experience, and changing jobs was like changing clothes to her. Being unemployed no longer had an emotional impact on her. What really made her anxious was the situation at home. Her dad had diabetes and was unable to work. However, he could not control himself and loved to eat sweet things. Last month, he had a sudden onset of complications from eating a small bite of honeydew melon. He was sent to the hospital and it cost her more than $15,000. Mom had no proper job and was at the gambling den the entire day. Not to mention the monthly allowance for her younger brother who was currently attending university. Recently he got himself a girlfriend and his expenses went through the roof. The last time she saw him, he said he wanted to buy a Fruit mobile phone as a birthday present for his girlfriend. A Fruit mobile phone? That cost $8,000 to $9,000. I use inferior brands that are only $400 or $500. Her younger brother explained, "Sis, our mom has already said, as compared to the money that will be spent on betrothal gifts when I marry, this is nothing. I'm spending a little more now so that I can save lots more in the future." Okay. Guo Yan gritted her teeth and impatiently transferred the money. All the pressure from work and family were weighing on her shoulders. She was so burdened that she felt suffocated. As she had worked for a few years and lived a frugal life, she should have saved at least $200,000, if not $300,000. However, it was all spent on her family. Recently, she was pushed to her limits. Not only could she not pay her rent, she also had a credit card debt of more than $10,000, and was unemployed. Many times she had hid under her covers and cried, not knowing if she could continue to endure this. The landlord's reply of "It's okay, you can pay your rent anytime" seemed to touch her. Chen Jin suddenly said, "Guo Yan, if you're not picky, I do have a job that I can introduce you to." "What kind of job?" Guo Yan raised her head to look at him with surprise. The landlord not only allowed her to postpone her rent, but also introduced her to a job? Chapter 44, Making a Wind Turbine. Chen Jin explained the situation. "It's like this. I've started a jewelry shop, and it's currently undergoing renovation. It isn't too far from here, just on Jinling West Road. I need to recruit quite a few people for the opening, which is predicted to happen next month." Besides the discussions on the purchase channels, Chu Wantin was also recruiting staff. After all, it was a large-scale shop measuring 300 square meters. She needed to recruit more than 10 staff and around another 2 more as security guards. If business increased dramatically during peak season and the staff needed to work 2 shifts, he would also recruit more staff at that time. To date, Chu Wanting had hired 2 staff as her personal assistants. They were also part of the staff at the previous shop where she worked as a store manager. Hearing what had happened to her recently, they clamored to join her in this new store. These old veteran buddies would continue to work hard together. Chu Wanting did not dare to take matters into her own hands and had called Chen Jin to ask about it. He said okay, employees who were older and more experienced were an asset too. They could even bring over their old clients, which would help the jewelry store on its path to success. A jewelry shop. Guo Yan was not the only one who was shocked. The flatmates in the other rooms, Lu Xiaoxia, Su Jiaojiao, and Zhao Yajing were extremely shocked too. Song Xuejie, who was standing near the doorway, perked her ears up and muttered, "The landlord is so rich that he can open a jewelry shop." Guo Yan asked with a tiny voice, "Then, what's the amount of my salary if I work in your shop?" She was very grateful for the landlord's concern, but some practical questions still had to be asked. After all, she shouldered a heavy burden. Chen Jin considered it for a moment, then said, $5,000 during the trial period. It will be a 6-day work week with 1 day off. If your performance is good, you can become an official staff sooner. Your salary will be increased to $5,000. Guo Yan silently weighed this offer. Frankly speaking, a starting salary of this amount was not low. It was at least a level higher than those fresh graduates working their first job. Most of them only had a starting salary of $3,500, of course, the statistics from the news showed an average starting salary as high as $5,380. In addition, she had a rather inferior educational history. $5,000 was really very good. But in this expensive city of Shanghai, rent would cost $1,000 and meals $1,500. Transport, mobile, clothing and other miscellaneous costs would bring the expenses up to $3,000. From a salary of $5,000, she could save at most $2,000. This little bit of income was far from sufficient for Guo Yan. She could find a position doing sales and easily earn $6,000 to $7,000 a month with her diligence. However, that was extremely tiring. So, seeing her hesitation, Chen Jin added, lunch will be provided at work. I'll also give $100 for transportation expenses and $300 as a rental subsidy, which will be subtracted from your rent. At this point, all her roommates began to persuade her. Guo Yan, this salary is really good. Quickly agree. Su Jiao wanted to cry, I work as an office clerk for $4,500. Landlord, do you still need people at the jewelry shop? I want to go too. However, it was just empty words. Her job as a clerk was extremely easy. Zhao Yijing gave her a detailed analysis. Guo Yan, Jinling West Road is not too far from here, it's only a distance of 7 or 8 kilometers. You can ride a shared bicycle to work, and you don't have to suffer the crowded train daily. With the added perks from the landlord, your total salary would be over $6,000. Even I want to work there. Finally, Guo Yan was moved. She nodded her head. Okay. Brother Chen, I'll go to work at your shop. I used to do sales in a jewelry shop, so I have some definite experience, and I'll learn very quickly. Brother Chen already took such great care of her, if she still did not agree, she would be very ungrateful. The salary was good too. If she lived frugally, she should be able to save $4,000 next month. It would be enough to pay off her credit card debt and provide an allowance for her younger brother. Brother Chen, thank you so much for helping me. She gave a deep bow to Chen Jin with an extremely thankful expression. It's okay, everyone has bad times. Chen Jin picked up his phone and called Chu Wanting. She agreed and would proceed with the arrangement. Guo Yan asked for the jewelry store's address, saying that she wanted to officially start work tomorrow. As he was about to leave, Song Shuejia pulled him aside. Batting her lashes, she said in a very pitiful manner, Brother landlord, I've used my salary to pay off my credit card this month, and I have no money for rent. Can I pay the rent for the past 2 months, as well as this month, all together in the next month? I beg you, please be understanding. Song Shuejia had not paid rent for the past 2 months and planned to drag it until the next month before paying it all. Chen Jin had no more words for this woman. All right, next month. Thank you, brother landlord. Song Shuejia abruptly hugged his neck. Leaning pink tender lips over, she almost kissed him on his face. With a full smile, she said, Brother landlord, can I work at your jewelry store? If it's okay, how about I go to work at your shop? Chen Jin struggled to free himself from her clinging arms. No need, thanks for your good intentions. I've something I need to take care of, I need to leave. He quickly left room 902 with Song Shuejia's laughter trailing behind him. Song Shuejia was anticipating the silent criticisms from others, you're a fake whore. How shameless. At night, in the camping ground in the huge crater, the AI named Alice reported good news. Master, I've completed the simulation for the industrial manufacturing process of the wind turbine that you've tasked me with. You did a good job, Alice. She showed a sweet smile. Thank you, Master, for your praise. Chen Jin let her open a design blueprint of a particular industrial manufacturing process. It played a video as it made an introductory explanation for him. Master, according to your requirements, the power output of the wind turbine should be around 30 kilowatts. So, the length of the blades should be roughly 12 meters, and each turbine should be installed with 3 blades. Strong plastic material can be used to make the blade. It can be printed in the capsule factory, and the modules can be assembled together. The shell of the main body, axle bearings, and the parts of the support body can also be printed in the capsule factory. As for the induction coils in the generator unit, there are ready-made nanocrystalline copper wires that we can use. However, due to the destructive war on this world, the magnetic property of most magnets are either greatly weakened or damaged. We need to use a permanent magnet in order to make a wind turbine that can generate a high amount of power. The permanent magnet's use is in energy conversion. Currently, we lack this type of magnet. The highly powerful magnetic field created at the moment a nuclear bomb exploded was very destructive to magnets. It directly damaged the magnetic performance of the magnets. Hierophant was just a wasteland. Undoubtedly, it was extremely difficult to find a permanent magnet in good physical and functional condition. He could only import it from Earth. Chen Jin did some research on the internet. He found that the high-performance neodymium magnet, with its tetragonal cell structure, had strong magnetism and a special advantage of high heat resistance. One set of such magnets was made up of 16 individual pieces, and each wind turbine required about 10 sets inside its body. As for the price, it was $25 per piece. The price of the magnets that he had to purchase for one wind turbine was around $4,000. Of course, this money was peanuts. By chance, there was a manufacturer in the city that produced neodymium for use in wind turbines. Chen Jin directly called the manufacturer and made an order for 100 sets of neodymium magnets. He spent a total of $40,000. The manufacturer even offered free shipping to his doorstep. A complete ready-made 30 kilowatts wind turbine plus its purchase fee, shipping fee, and installation fee. The whole thing would cost me at least $200,000. And 10 sets would equate to $2 million. I've only spent $40,000. I just need to buy engine oil, lubricant, and whatnot. The total expenses would at most be $100,000. It's really true that's it better to make one than to buy one. Chen Jin sighed with feeling. It was 2 days ago that hundreds of robots transported a general production capsule factory back to the campground. With rover number 1 pulling at the front, and the robots' collective efforts, they managed to transport the factory. And after a round of cleaning and servicing, it could be used normally. A big batch of various raw materials to be printed was brought back as well. When the neodymium magnets arrived tomorrow, he could begin the production of the wind turbines. Chapter 45, The Power Shortage is Resolved. The next half-month that followed kept everyone at the camping ground in the huge crater very busy as they made use of the general production capsule factory to print the parts of the wind turbines so that they could create a power generator. Of course, Chen Jin was not toiling away on his own. There were hundreds of extremely strong robots who were supporting him by doing the physical tasks for free. Hence, there were not many areas where he had to exert himself physically. Even so, he was still drop-dead exhausted. He had to solve a huge number of issues and proceed with the calibration of the commands. First was the problem of supplying power for the capsule factory. A capsule factory was still a factory. It also came with a special quality called huge power consumption. It consumed 20 kilowatts during normal standby and 80 kilowatts during common use. It could consume a maximum power of 300 kilowatts. Chen Jin had cut the power supply of the supercalculator, its data had been exported in advance, and together with the 30 kilowatt home use cable from his room, connected both power supplies to the capsule factory. Still, it only allowed the capsule factory to turn on and enter into a work-ready mode. In order to use it normally, there was at least a power shortage of 60 kilowatts. How was he supposed to replenish this shortage? The answer was high-efficiency batteries. A large high-efficiency battery weighing 10 kilograms could supply a maximum power output of 3 kilowatts. Connecting 20 large high-efficiency batteries in parallel would be sufficient to supply the required power to run the capsule factory. But when the large batteries were worked at their maximum output of 3 kilowatts, they could only last for 12 hours. Moreover, they would greatly overheat, affecting the battery's safety. He could only drive rover number 1 over and use it as a power supply vehicle. It had 100 large high-efficiency batteries in its battery chamber, which would provide sufficient power for the capsule factory. Even so, the power consumption of the capsule factory seemed to go beyond one's imagination. Even all of the fully charged batteries from rover number 1 could only power the capsule factory for around 20 hours of continuous work. This meant that he would have to switch out and replace 100 large high-efficiency batteries every day. A large high-efficiency battery weighed 10 kilograms. Multiplied by 100. Back on Earth, Chen Jin had to make a daily trip to the charging factory at Baoshan Industrial Park to transport 1 ton of high-efficiency batteries using his car. And then he carried them, piece by piece, up to his room in 302. There was no elevator on the stairwell, so he had to walk up to the 3rd story. Every day, he had to repeat that twice in order to carry them up and then down, until his hands went numb and his legs cramped. But he had to persevere with it. Even with this, by the 5th day, the charging speed for the batteries at the charging factory was gradually losing pace with the power consumption of the capsule factory. It placed a strain on the power usage. It was lucky that the production of the wind turbines was not too work-intensive. The capsule factory had finished printing all of the required components and modules on the 6th day. After which, was assembling the primary modules, the rotor blades, main engine, and support pole. Then, he would choose a location to place the wind turbines. Since they were wind turbines, there was no doubt that he had to choose a location where the wind was strong. There would be a greater amount of power generated. The wind turbines could only generate the specific output of 30 kilowatts when the wind power was of a certain standard. In order to tackle the issue of choosing an appropriate location, Chen Jin bought an anemometer on Earth. It hung from the Dejiang's Phantom 4 PRO camera drone as they rose 20 meters into the air to test the speed of the wind. In the end, he settled on 2 suitable locations. The first location was on the top of a stone mountain ridge, 30 kilometers northwest and 300 meters above sea level. It was not far from the battleground. His measurements showed that normal wind speed could reach 25 meters per second and the greatest wind speeds were above 35 meters per second. The location would allow the wind turbine to fully generate its maximum output of power. The only disadvantage was the long distance, which made transport inconvenient. The second location was towards the east, on an unnamed earthen hill 5 kilometers away. It was not highly elevated above sea level and was rather flat as it was an extrusion of a plain. Therefore, the average wind speeds could reach 15 meters per second and the greater wind speeds, which happened only intermittently, could reach 25 meters per second and above. Its advantage laid in its short distance from the camp, and transport was convenient. Its disadvantage was a lower power output. The wind turbines would not be able to generate a maximum power output. After judging their comparative merits, Chen Jin chose to safely install the wind turbines on the top of the unnamed earthen hill. The reason was the safety of the wind turbines. Although the stone mountain ridge to the northwest could normally receive stronger winds, once the weather turned for the worse, intermittent wind speeds could reach 50 meters per second and above. This exceeded the endurance capacity of the wind turbine structure. The support poles could possibly be broken by the overly strong winds. It possessed low-level safety for the installation. Recently, as higher thaw entered the month of November, its northern half turned colder. The northern winds grew stronger. It was not suitable to install the wind turbine facility in a place where the winds were already strong. Although the wind power was a little weaker on the unnamed earthen hill 5 kilometers to the east, it offered a higher level of safety for installation. Moreover, the distance was near and it was easier to dig into the earth than stone, so the installation process would be easier too. And so, he made his decision. Chen Jin led the robots as they set out. The robots carried the various components of the wind turbines and they set out for the earthen hill to the east in a vast and mighty formation. This spot. First, dig a big hole in the ground that measures 3 meters in diameter and 5 meters in depth. Put in some high tensile steel, and throw some rocks into the steel cage. The steel scraps that were taken from the football stadium in the city of Tabriz, carry them over here. Maintenance robots, start the laser machine and heat up the steel scraps. Pour the liquid steel inside. Other than the mounting holes, fill everything up. That was right. There was no ready-made cement available for use in higher thaw. But there was a sufficient amount of old steel scraps. Chen Jin let the robots haul over the steel scraps, which weighed more than 1,000 tons. Using high heat, they were melted into liquid and poured into the foundation pit as the turbine's mounting base. For each mounting base, he poured 100 tons of liquid steel inside. The liquid steel mixed with the high tensile steel and rocks formed a structure that was absolutely more reliable and sturdier than one that was formed by a mixture of steel and concrete. In addition, the cylindrical stem of the support pole could be joined with the cylindrical mounting holes that were left empty in the mounting base. After opening the active/locking clutch, the wind turbine could rotate 360 degrees. It would turn towards whichever direction the wind was coming from, so it would be able to generate electricity at all times. With 10 robots, they could complete the routine maintenance. It took a total of 3 days to fully install the wind turbines. After which, he spent a few more days to finish the installations for the voltage transformer, regulator, the current collector, and the power storage equipment. From there, he built a 10-kilometer long power transmission cable. On the 5th day, after a round of calibration, the wind farm was officially connected to the grid. The supercalculator started up again. The AI, Alice, who was in charge of monitoring the grid, said, "Master, currently, the wind farm is generating an average power output of 260 kilowatts. The biggest output is 280 kilowatts. With this amount of energy, it's enough to power a small farm." Chen Jin nodded his head and let out a long breath. My campground finally has electricity. The problem of insufficient energy resources at the campground was temporarily resolved. He had freed himself from the dependence on the electricity from Earth. But it might be premature to say that the problem of insufficient energy resources was completely solved, because there were too many things that used huge amounts of energy. Remodeling rover number 1, the supercalculator, and the capsule factory. These 3 things were enough to completely use up the power output of 260 kilowatts. There was still the electric car Blue Angel, more than 100 robots, the electric motorcycle Reagan, the laser machine, and other tools. Although they were small users of electricity, the total sum of their power usage was still very significant. Chen Jin estimated that he could only fully satisfy the energy needs at the campground when the number of wind turbines was increased to 40 and they generated a total power of 1000 kilowatts or more. However, he currently possessed an insufficient amount of raw materials for printing. He had to wait until he had gathered enough materials before inputting them and starting the work process to create more wind turbines. It's better to wait for some time before expanding the power facility. It's been too tiring this half a month. I need a good rest for a while to buffer myself. A power output of 260 kilowatts is temporarily sufficient, though just barely. I can disconnect the home use cable from Earth. As for the charging factory at Baoshan Industrial Park, its mission is finally completed and it can be laid to rest. No doubt about it, freeing myself from the dependence on electricity from Earth has greatly reduced the risk of exposing the secret. This great potential danger of exposure has been thoroughly eliminated. Now, I can finally to put rest a portion of my worries. Chapter 46, Gold in Exchange for Gold. By the 6th of November, Chen Jin's jewelry shop still had not officially opened. It was stuck at the busy stage of preparations. The renovations had been completed. Overall, the shop had a luxurious and imposing atmosphere. There were dazzling displays of gold and jade, and the dimmed lighting of the crystal chandelier emitted a warm amber glow that made it seem as if the temperature of the interior had risen about 2 degrees. People would not be able to help but get excited. Riches. Treasures. This was what people would perceive directly through their senses upon entering the shop. Guo Yan had been working there for more than half a month, and by now, her heart had completely settled. There were no remaining worries and doubt from her first days. Now, she only wanted to give it her all and work in this shop wholeheartedly. She was filled with power and vigor, because she realized that there was a future for her if she continued working in Brother Chen's jewelry store. First, the working environment was very good. The scale of the shop was very big. The first 2 stories were renovated into business areas, while half of the floor area on the 3rd story was used as a storage room. The remaining 50 square meters were made into a kitchen, canteen, and lounge. Compared to her previous workplace where she had to brave the weather daily, the facilities here were much better. Moreover, the store manager was easygoing, approachable, and nice. She took great care of her and was willing to impart some industry experience, showing that the manager had the intention to groom and cultivate her skills. Even the 2 aunties who had a few years of working experience with the store manager were polite to her. They frequently guided and aided her. The relationship between the superiors and colleagues was very harmonious. Most importantly, however, the jewelry shop had a bright future. Although the shop was yet unopened, Guo Yan, through her observations, had noticed that its location was excellent. It was in the liveliest section of Jinling West Road with a definite stream of potential customers. In addition, Brother Chen had deep pockets. Auntie Chu had randomly revealed this: the stocks coming into the shop had a total value of nearly $6 million, filling the 3rd floor storage room almost to the brim. The big promotion activity that they were preparing for would be a steal for customers. There were plenty of funds invested into it. If the jewelry shop started off with a bang and developed successfully, the boss would definitely reward the pioneer batch of staff. She just had to perform actively, work diligently, and make her fair share of contributions. Naturally, the store manager, Chu Wanting, took note of her performance. Whenever she called Chen Jin, she would praise her profusely and continuously. Chen Jin nodded. After the official opening of the shop, we can turn Guo Yan and the rest into confirmed staff with higher salaries. If the first month of the shop is good, we can give the sales staff some commissions. Chu Wanting said, it's better to wait until after a full month of operations, when we've calculated the shop's profits, before considering to raise their salaries. It's not too clear yet and we don't want to incur additional costs. Auntie Chu, you're right. By now, Chen Jin had less than $3 million remaining funds. Before the jewelry shop gave him any financial benefits, he could no longer be a spendthrift, and he had to control his expenses. With regards to the stock, Chu Wanting had expressed that what they had prepared might not be sufficient. She said, for a large jewelry shop with about 20 kilograms of gold jewelry in the display counters, the total cost would be at least $5 million and above. But, we've only prepared 15 kilograms, and purchased more silver jewelry. The total cost of platinum, diamonds, and other gemstones that we procured are less than $500,000. We've spent all our money to barely stock up the counter displays on the first and second stories. However, we've nothing left in the storage room to replenish our stocks. If we have a large inflow of customers on our opening day, the sales amount could be above expectations. It's possible that we might face the awkwardness of a shortage of stock. She suggested, Boss, I propose that we reduce the area of business operations and only operate on the first story. The jewelry on the second story can be used as ready stock while the counters on the first story can be placed closer together. This should allow us to face the situation if business sales flourish. No. On the contrary, Chen Jin shook his head, if we want to open for business, we have to do it big. We'll start operations on the first and second stories at the same time. Purchase another $5 million worth of stocks. $5,000,000. Chu Wanting was shocked. She asked, Boss, you still have that much funds? No, I have a batch of gold that was given to me by a friend. It's valued at $5 million and above. Can I put this gold into the shop directly for sale? What's the primary form of that gold? Gold bars and bullions or gold jewelry? Mainly gold bullions. Is there a production certificate? The certificate would clearly state the location of manufacture and the manufacturer. I don't think there is. Is there a certificate of purchase? This certificate would state the origins of the gold and the purchasing body. Chen Jin's voice became smaller. No. How about an inspection certificate? Do you have this? The inspection certificate would indicate the specific components of the gold and the percentage of gold. By now, Chen Jin's voice was tiny like a mosquito. This. I think I don't have that either. He suddenly realized that he was too simple-minded. Oh. I understand now, Chu Wanting said with what seemed to be years of experience. The gold that your friend gave you must be third void gold. Yes. Can I sell this type of gold in the shop? Chen Jin refused to give up. He had more than a ton of this gold. Yes. Unexpectedly, Chu Wanting answered in the affirmative. You can sell it in the shop as long as there are no problems with the gold. But as a third void gold without any certifications, the customers will have their suspicions. If there are problems with the gold and customers report a complaint with the Consumers Association, it would cause big issues for us. Moreover, because our shop is so big, the Department of Industry and Commerce would conduct random inspections a few times annually. If they discover that we are selling third void gold or that the gold is adulterated, we will be fined and face corrective actions. Boss, I don't recommend that we sell the third void gold. Actually, there were many unbranded gold shops in the small cities and towns which sold third void gold in the majority. Not to go too deep into their extent of illegality, but there were severely adulterated items on sale and imitations were freely sold. Even so, they survived very well because the law didn't crack down on them. However, in such a big metropolitan city like Shanghai, law enforcement would certainly be strict. In theory, the law did not allow the sale of third void gold, even if you were selling 100% pure gold. Then what should I do? In an instant, Chen Jin had wilted like a vegetable left out for too long in the freezing cold. Was the gold only good to be destroyed? Don't worry, boss. The gold from your friend can be used to exchange for gold. Gold in exchange for gold. Chen Jin's head was getting foggy. Chu Wanting started to explain in a captivating manner, you take your gold to legal jewelry manufacturers and exchange it for gold jewelry that has proper certifications. Indeed, if we sell third void gold at the consumer purchasing stage, they would be the ones bearing the risk of buying fakes. In order to protect the consumer's benefits, the government regulatory body will enhance their controls. This is to prevent fake goods from flooding unchecked into the market. But, because the jewelry manufacturers belong to the production stage and do not cater directly to the consumers, the relevant regulatory bodies are more lax about them. As long as there were no issues with the end products, the government departments would not interfere much with the specific manufacture processes. It was similar to the analogy of the spicy bean curd strips. Everyone knew that they were delicious. But did anyone ever took a closer look at its manufacture process? Which customers would go into the kitchen for an inspection with regards to the delicacies provided at a restaurant? By the same logic, the jewelry manufacturer supplied the jewelry shops with goods that had the proper certifications. But the manufacturer also needed gold, silver, and other raw materials for production. The origins of the raw materials were complicated. There were legal and illegal mining companies, as well as gold that was recovered from the market. A large proportion of raw materials were made up of market-recovered gold. Many goldsmiths and jewelry shops provide a gold return service. A majority of the gold recovered from the public had their certifications lost and thus become third void gold. The goldsmiths and the jewelry shops would sell the recovered gold to the jewelry manufacturers, and this forms a cycle of sale, return/recover, and reproduction. So, even if the gold you got from your friend is third void gold, you can sell it for money or exchange it for gold jewelry at the manufacturers. As long as it is real gold, it will be a piece of cake. Of course, the price for recovered gold without its certifications would be slightly lower. There'll be a production wastage fee for exchange of gold jewelry, but there's not much difference usually, only around 5%. As an expert professional in the industry, Chu Wanting was closely acquainted with many gold-to-gold exchange channels. Chen Jin's eyes gleamed brightly. Found it! There was a way to deal with the gold. He would take his third void gold of unclear origins to the jewelry manufacturers in exchange for gold jewelry that could be sold in his shop for a higher value, and which were legal and certified. In this way, his jewelry shop would not face any issues and could open for business in a public and grand manner to welcome a mass of consumers to purchase in their shop. He could even offer a greater discount on the price of the jewelry. As the business was based on selling huge quantities, Chen Jin could still earn a lot of money even if the prices were lowered to a more competitive level. Let's go. Auntie Chu, take me with you to the jewelry manufacturers that you know well and find a few trustworthy familiar people. I want to exchange gold for gold. Hence, in the following 3 days, under Chu Wanting's direction, they went to over 10 jewelry manufacturers. Chen Jin took out 100 kilograms of gold and exchanged it for 90 kilograms of gold jewelry. The shortage of ready stock in the jewelry shop had been resolved. Chapter 47, The Grand Opening. On the 10th of November, with much haste on the day before Singles' Day, the jewelry shop named Forever Jewels was finally ready for its grand opening after more than a month of busy and urgent preparations. At 10 a.m. at the jewelry shop, customers would find floral stands placed at the sides of the shop's entrance. A bright red carpet stretched from the interior of the shop to the pedestrian walkway by the side of the road. Ad hoc staff recruited by the event planning company wore cheongsams and stood in 2 lines. They cupped their palms and displayed their most beautiful smiles. Whenever someone passed by, they would all say at the same time, "Welcome." The female staff of the jewelry shop wore khaki-colored dress suits while the security guards wore full sets of black suits. They were all alert and ready for action as they displayed their best spirits. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the jewelry shop invited a leader from the Bureau of Industry and Commerce. She took a pair of scissors and cut the ribbon, signifying an abundance of riches flowing in. The audio played the sounds of firecrackers being set off. Crackle pop, pop pop. The ushers dressed in cheongsams at the entrance, the shop staff, and the VIPs invited to the opening shouted together, "Forever Jewels is open for business." Whoa! Fireworks were set off simultaneously. Bang! 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 Countless streamers rained down from the air like a shower of flowers. The atmosphere became lively and busy. It attracted many people who stopped to have a look. Clang clang! The two clashes of the gong signified the opening of the business. The glass doors of the jewelry shop swung wide open. The ushers in cheongsams and some of the shop staff held flyers in their hands and walked to the passers-by watching from the sides. As they gave out the flyers, they said, "Go in and have a look, we are having a free raffle today. Each person gets a free chance in the raffle. Special discounts for all the gold and silver jewelry. Up to 10% off, some items up to 15% off. More than 30% off for each gram of gold. 20% off everything for the first 100 customers. Gold bullion special price at only $288 per gram. The cheapest in the city. Customers who want to invest can come in for a more detailed explanation. This is the biggest sale ever. Don't miss it as you pass by." Some of the passers-by watching from the side were swayed. "Free lucky draw? I'll go in and try my luck. 10% off silver and gold? This is not a small discount. My son is getting married at the end of the year. If the price is right, I'll buy some gold jewelry." Many passers-by moved their feet towards the direction of the shop. As others saw the bustle of the shop's opening, they were drawn to the liveliness and were driven to join the crowd. More and more people went into the shop for a look. There was a guaranteed stream of customers. The opening campaign of Forever Jewels could be said to have an auspicious start. However, Chen Jin's parents were in a state beyond shock. Especially He Li, whose face displayed a stunned and glazed expression. Her mouth hung slightly open and her eyes were full of astonishment. She thought that Chen Jin was opening a small-scale gold jewelry shop measuring 20 or 30 square meters, with only a mere few $100,000 invested into it. Hence she did not pay too much attention to it and left him to his little business. So, she came to the opening scene for a look, and found that this was no small business, this was clearly a major move. Due to the nature of her occupation, and being an accountant for many years, the numbers quickly began to fly in her brain. The annual rental of a 300 square meter shop on a prosperous commercial strip would be at least $3,500,000. The jewelry filling up the display counters on the first and second stories would cost at least tens of millions. Including expenses spent on other areas, it would be impossible to open this jewelry shop without at least $15 million. A prominent question appeared in her mind. Where did this huge sum of money come from? Since when did her son have so many funds? She saw Chen Jin standing right in the center of the foyer. He was passionately greeting the customers, directing and coordinating the staff. That air of calmness, the presence of mind and lack of apprehension were rather similar to the characteristics of a great general. At that moment, He Li thought that her son felt more like a stranger. It seems like he's more mature now. Hence, she decided to keep her suspicions under wraps. She would talk to him again after the day had ended. During this time, with Chen Jin personally serving a customer, she became the first official client at the checkout, spending $8,500 on a strand of necklace with 32.8 grams of gold. Dong Lei was a leader at the Bureau of Industry and Commerce. She wore the newly bought necklace and walked to He Li, saying, "Director He, look, isn't it pretty?" Dong Lei said with an overflowing smile on her face, "I probably have to spend tens of thousands at other shops for the same necklace, but I only spent $8,500 here. Director He, I cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony of this shop today, this wouldn't be counted as corruption, would it?" He Li smiled in return. "No, no. This is called servicing the people wholeheartedly as a good leader." She could not help but praise her. "The gold necklace looks great. You have good taste." Looking at Chen Jin who was currently busy, Dong Lei's eyes radiated with admiration. "Director He, your son is a really good catch, he looks like he can achieve big goals. Did my daughter, Lin, have a misunderstanding regarding him? This fellow is not too bad in all aspects." He Li immediately gave a pained smile. "Your daughter didn't misunderstand him. It was this fellow playing mind games with me." She explained in detail the specific reasons why the blind date between Chen Jin and her daughter, Yuan Lin, failed. Dong Lei listened with shock. Then, she laughed so hard that she was clutching her stomach. "Interesting, interesting. Director He, your son is really too interesting. Ha ha ha." He Li gritted her teeth in anger, "This is interesting? I wanted to give him a good hard smack. He missed such a good lady." Dong Lei praised Chen Jin. "Young people are like that nowadays. They're busy with leisure activities or vacations or chilling out. They're just not busy about getting married. Your son is still okay, at least he's busy with work and a career." Turning her gaze towards Chen Jin, her tone changed as she said, "As for the missed opportunity, I don't think it's over. My daughter still doesn't understand the real situation regarding your son." With gleaming eyes, He Li turned towards her. "Director Dong, do you mean there's still a chance between my son and Lin Lin?" Dong Lei nodded, "Yes, with the matching backgrounds and qualities of our families, we should create another chance for them." He Li was ecstatic. "Dong Lei, I agree with this." As the volume of customers was so great, the shop was kept busy past 10 p.m. Finally, business slowed down. Most of the staff had not had lunch, including the boss, Chen Jin. They had only eaten some bread in the middle of the day. At least, until He Li ordered a feast at the adjacent 5-star hotel as supper for them. They finally had their first bite of hot food for the whole day. The revenue from the first business day had basically been confirmed. The cashier, Fan Chen Xi, said happily, "The shop's revenue has reached $10,170,000. Our sales on the first day are over $1 million. Store manager Chu Wanting cheered loudly, "Good. That's not bad at all. We got an auspicious start on our opening day. It's Singles Day tomorrow on Double 11. Sales revenue should increase. It won't be a problem to surpass $15 million. We'll definitely be even busier tomorrow. We're almost running out of stock for some gold jewelry." Chu Wanting expressed that she would call the manufacturers later and replenish the stocks. In her heart, Guo Yan sighed emotionally. There are too many rich people in Shanghai. She felt very heavily impacted by the day. The spending power of the hillbilly rich in the city was shocking. For example, that afternoon, there was a middle-aged man dressed in low-key, simple clothing who came into the shop. In one breath, he had bought 100 pieces of gold bullions for investment. He did not even blink once at the checkout. Even with a discounted price of $288 per gram, one tiny gold bullion was 50 grams. Hence, one bullion would cost $140,000 and 100 bullions would cost $1,440,000. However, he simply bought them with a straight face, as if he had spent $5 or $10. There were a few other hillbilly rich who also contributed many millions to the sales revenue. Chen Jin nodded his head in satisfaction. If business continued going in this direction, he would join the ranks of those who had more than $100 trillion in a few days. Hence, he raised his glass again and again, expressing his thanks to his audience. Encouraging them to strive harder, he promised that if the sales numbers were great for the following month, he would give everyone a red packet of at least $10,000. Even their salaries would be raised. "Thank you, boss." "Hooray, boss." Another round of cheers for our next excellent results. The staff was very excited. Not only was the young boss able to do things himself, but he was also easygoing and generous. In their opinions, they met a good boss, and they were determined to work hard in their jobs. Everyone was filled with vigor. On the way home, as He Li was driving, she turned to Chen Jin and asked, "Son, where did you get the money to open the jewelry shop?" "Mom, didn't I already say? A friend loaned it to me." "Which friend?" "Son, you should know that I work as a cadre in the government department. You should never accept money with unclear origins." He Li was worried that some businessmen or business owners were planning to make her son a victim in their schemes. As the general accountant in the tax bureau, she was in charge of calculating and monitoring the accounts and tax returns of many business enterprises. Her position may be small, but it was still very important. "Mom, I'm not an idiot. Will I do something that you've reminded me countless times not to do? I can lie to anyone, but will I lie to my own mother?" Chen Jin promised again that the money was loaned from a friend. But, the specifics around the identity were still a secret. He slowly chipped away at her suspicions. Finally, she stopped asking. Thinking of another matter, He Li asked again, "Son, does your shop have an accountant?" "No, but I've found a nominal accountant. The shop's finances are handled by Gu Yiqing. She has many years of experience in finance and accounting." "Son, you've opened such a large jewelry shop. The sales amount on the first day of operations is already more than 10 million. This is not child's play. You can't fully hand over the accounts to someone else. How about this, I can take off 2 days every week and go to the shop to manage the accounts. I'll personally help you check that everything is in order." As someone who had checked through countless reports and supervised countless financial tasks, she did not believe that anything fishy could get past her eagle eyes as an experienced accountant. It was merely a jewelry shop, it would not even take up any of her time off on the weekend. This. Chen Jin started to reflect on this and seemed to be slightly hesitant. Looking at his lack of response at length, Li was somewhat upset. Son, I'll help you do the checks and make sure everything meets the standard. Isn't it better than an outsider doing it for you? I won't be taking any salary from you either. Okay, okay. Mom, I'll let you handle the checking of all financial affairs. I'm just worried that it would affect your rest. Li smiled. Silly child, why stand on ceremony with your own mother? She was confident that under her strict supervision, his jewelry shop would only profit. It would be impossible for it to make a loss. Chapter 48, Cooking the Books. On the first day of Forever Jewels opening, it had an auspicious start of over 10 million in sales revenue. On the second day, which was also Singles Day, the promotional campaign for the jewelry shop continued. The volume of customers was even bigger. The shop realized $18,600,000 in sales revenue. On the third, fourth, and fifth days, the sales revenue was $8,700,000, $8,300,000, and $7,400,000 respectively. Only on the eighth day, when the promotion ended, did the sales revenue drop lower than $5 million. In 7 days, the total sales revenue from the jewelry shop was more than $64 million. This was a sales number that would put a gleam into anyone's eyes. In her more than 20 years of experience in the jewelry industry, Chu Wanting had never created such prosperous sales revenue. Of course, she knew the reason for the dramatic business of the shop. It was because the pricing of the jewelry was so competitive. Especially the gold jewelry. Other jewelry shops would set a general price of $350 or $360 per gram. Even when they did promotions, they would only give a discount of about $10. But at Forever Jewels, the price of gold was set at $336 per gram. With an additional discount of 10% to 15% off, the average price was around $300 per gram. To the customers, it was equivalent to shaving off the handling fees. Then, there were these tiny little gold bullions of 50 grams that were custom-made for the investors. They had a square appearance without much aesthetic beauty. But, they were priced at only $288 per gram. It was very close to the international spot price of gold. The pricing was extremely attractive and very suitable for hedge investing. In fact, more than a third of the sales revenue was from customers with investment needs. Some of those investor clients were picking on the gold bullions for its small size of 50 grams. They wanted bigger gold bullions, like those weighing 100, 200, 500, or even 1000 grams. That way, it would be more comfortable to look at them. Chu Wanting could only follow their wishes and increase the number of gold bullions weighing 100 grams, 200 grams, and 500 grams in order to satisfy the different needs of different customers. At the same time, she could not help but sigh with deeply, there's simply too many rich people in Shanghai. However, even though the sales revenues for these few days were very high, the realized profits were not high at all. It was because they employed the strategy of using low prices to bring in huge sales volumes. Especially the gold, which was not only unprofitable but made a loss of $2 to $3 for every gram sold. If not for the millions in profits brought in by the sales of platinum, diamonds, and other jewelry, the shop would not be earning a single cent in those 7 days of promotion. It was great that the promotion period was over. Word of the jewelry shop had spread. The price of the jewelry had risen to normal levels, causing the volume of sales to drop. However, there would definitely be profits. On the other hand, Chen Jin had a totally different attitude. He was so happy that he could not stop smiling. It was because the 100 kilograms of gold that he provided were all found on hire fa. After going to the jewelry manufacturers to exchange the gold for 90 kilograms of gold jewelry, the purchasing cost of these goods was close to zero. Those 90 kilograms of gold jewelry had long been sold during the few days of promotion. They had been changed into a huge sum of $26 million in a secret account. The account had been created using the identity of Uncle Qin. The process of changing gold into cash had successfully been completed in a few short days. Maintaining the profits of the jewelry shop was also a guarantee now. It could be said that this process was perfect. But, he wanted to keep a low profile. In order to maintain the normal operations of the jewelry shop, Chen Jin felt that he only needed to provide a small amount of third void gold. I'll take about 100 kilograms of gold every month and go to various jewelry manufacturers to exchange them for gold jewelry. In this way, I'll have more than $20 million in cash deposited into my account every month. It will be more than 2 billion. Around 2 billion. Was that enough? Of course, it was far from enough. The hot air that he had boasted to his parents was a profit of 10 billion in a year. It was equivalent to changing 4 or 5 tons of gold into cash every year. Of course, if Chen Jin possessed sufficient gold, he would want to sell off tens or hundreds of tons of gold each year. It would earn him hundreds of billions. But this method carried too great a risk. The probability of being exposed was too high. In order to avoid causing the need for an inspection, trading 100 kilograms of gold each month was the limit. But if he wanted to fulfill the goal of earning 10 billion annually, he still had to employ other methods to generate money legally. Start a business. I have to take immediate action to start a business. I have more than $20 million going into my account every month, it's enough for the first phase of starting a business. When others start a business and spend money, they are always worried about the enterprise funding chain breaking. But I have a jewelry shop and an entire planet. My funding chain will never be broken. The next step in my plan will be launched soon. Making use of her 2 days off, He thoroughly inspected each sum of money that went in and out of the shop's account books. She calculated everything comprehensively. She nodded her head and said to Chen Jin, "Your judgment was right. The person you hired as the store manager, Chu Wanting, is very good. No matter if it's renovations, incoming stocks, outgoing stocks, staff expenses, or other consumables. They can all be matched to the invoices. I can't detect any problems. In addition, travel expenses, fuel costs, treating the clients to free meals and the staff to supper, and even beverage costs, are not included inside here." Obviously, store manager Chu had contributed a portion of her own money for these expenses. "Son, give her an additional bonus of $10,000 next month. Such good staff is uncommon nowadays." Chen Jin nodded. "Understood, Mom." If not for his mom's expert experience, he would not even know that Auntie Chu had contributed a portion of the money. But, looking at the account books, He reflected quietly, the origins of this 90 kilograms of jewelry is very strange. There's only a record of stock coming in. I don't see any purchasing list, so I can't calculate the purchasing costs of this batch of goods. Chen Jin's heart skipped a beat. Mom had seen through him. But, he was not surprised. With her sharp and piercing gaze, it would be weirder if she could not detect such an obvious flaw in the account books. Luckily, he had already prepared a plausible story to explain the origins of this batch of goods. "Mom, weren't you very worried about how I got the money to open the jewelry shop? To tell you honestly, a friend lent me that money." He rolled her eyes. It was the same as not saying anything. Also, he was the one who actively lent me that money. He did not give me any ES or want me to return the money. It's because he possesses a huge amount of gold. Chen Jin continued to talk incessantly. He created a mysterious friend who had a huge amount of gold but had difficulty in trading it personally. Hence, he requested Chen Jin work with him using the method of using gold to exchange for gold jewelry at the jewelry manufacturers and then selling it in the jewelry shop. Chen Jin would personally handle the business and liquidate his gold. So, Chen Jin was only a business intermediary. The real power laid with the mysterious friend standing in his shadows. He suddenly understood. No wonder that enormous sum of $26 million was deposited into a newly opened account. Clever. Your friend is really clever. He actually thought of this method to deal with the third void gold in his hands. He's so clever to the point that he turned my son into his cover and scapegoat. With a chill in her voice, she asked Chen Jin, "Son, what's the name of your friend? Where does he live? Can you take me to see him?" He planned to have a little meet and greet with this mysterious character. Chen Jin waved his hands repeatedly. No, I promised him that I will keep his secret. Once exposed, he'll either disappear himself or the people who found out his secret would disappear. I can't tell you." He snorted heavily. Just how much gold does he have that he dare to make statements like making people disappear? Suddenly, she remembered the question that he had asked her. If he found a ton of gold, who does the gold belong to? Could it be? Her mind went to how that mysterious friend gifted her son with more than $10 million to open a jewelry shop. He took out more than 100 kilograms of gold all at once for liquidation, strictly requesting her son to keep it a secret. He Li instantly understood that the mysterious character must have an impressive amount of gold on him. However, he should not have targeted her son and used him as a tool. Therefore, she had to interfere. She would use her resources to continue investigating this matter. She would find out how much gold that fellow possessed. According to the law, he had to hand it over to the state. It would all be confiscated, and depending on the situation, he would either be rewarded or face penalties. Mom. The gold is legal. It was a legacy from his ancestors, it absolutely belongs to his family. Helly shook her head. No, no. Theoretically speaking, that is a cultural artifact. But that's an enormous amount of gold, who would willingly hand it over to the state? Mom, if the gold was the legacy of our ancestors, would you hand it over? He Li sank into deep thought. She had to admit that this question tested one's character. But, if it was her, she would not hand it over either. Mom, I have a good relationship with that friend. He has a good personality too. I promise you, he's definitely not a criminal. I went to transport the gold with him during the long National Day holidays. We dug it up from the bottom of his old house. He has the title deed to the old house. He trusts me the most, I can't make any trouble for him. He Li had another sudden realization. No wonder he did not come back home for 8 or 9 days on his last trip. He was not on a vacation. In fact, he was transporting gold. A single transport took 8 to 9 days to complete. This made her imagine a scenario where the gold was piled high as a mountain. All right, son. I'll believe you guys. He Li finally believed him. No matter who it was, once anyone got their hands on such an enormous amount of gold, their first thought would be to take it for themselves. Then, they would want to keep it an absolute secret. It would be ideal if there was only one person in the whole world who knew about it. But Chen Jin still revealed part of this secret to her. Finally, she said, "Okay, son. I can understand how you and your friend conducted the business. I'll help you keep the secret." Chen Jin was ecstatic. "Thanks, Mom." But, waving the accounts book in her hands, He Li shook her head. "Young people, you have a brain, but the way you do things is still not sufficiently reliable or secure. How can such an obvious loophole in the book stand up to inspection? Although this is not against the law, what would happen if something does come up? We still have to cover up this loophole." Chen Jin scratched his head. "But, how do we do that?" He had no clue how to go about it. He Li gave an abrupt sigh. "Hey, it's better for you to leave it to me. I'll handle it." Chen Jin's eyes swiftly widened. Looking at her in shock, he said, "Mom, you mean, you'll cook the books?" He Li nodded gently. "But, don't you never do that kind of thing? Your nickname in the tax bureau is the Iron Amor accountant." He Li shook her head. "Who knows? It's because you're my son." Normally, she would never break the rules. But because her son was in a rather unique set of circumstances, she could make an exception. "Thanks, Mom, thank you." Cheering happily in his mind, Chen Jin beamed with joy. "Ha ha ha! It is done. This time around, it is a 100% done deal." With his mom in action, he could rest assured, and boldly sell the gold from higher fa. Hooray, Mom! Chapter 49, The Campground at the Huge Crater. As the jewelry shop had been set in the right direction, Chen Jin redirected his focus back to higher fa. During the time that passed, significant changes had occurred at the campground. First, a house had been built in the center of the campground. It was constructed by welding steel plates together. The metal house took up an area of about 80 square meters. There were a total of 3 stories. On the first story was the kitchen, dining room, and storeroom, where he kept all his tools and exploration equipment. A toilet was located just outside. On the second story was his living and sleeping quarters, which were connected to the portal. He could return to his bedroom on Earth anytime. As for the third story, he could store the weapons, ammunition, jewels, and other treasures up there. They no longer had to be stacked in a towering pile without any form of shelter. After the metal house was built, the living facilities at the campground were greatly improved. In addition, he built another metal house. The supercalculator was kept inside this second metal house. He also built a few more garages. More than 20 temporary amenities were constructed using the same steel plates. They had walls and roofs, and acted as a barricade from the sandstorms, providing shelter from the wind and rain. In the near future, the number of metal-constructed amenities would definitely be increased to the hundreds. In addition, the shipping squad had brought back a large amount of equipment and supplies from Fort Worth City. For example, the quantity of the capsule factories had increased to 11. Of those 11 capsule factories, 7 were designed for general production and 4 were designed for custom production. More than 300 tons of raw materials needed for the printing process had been transported back. Furthermore, the shipping squad had transported thousands of tons of scrap steel, tens of tons of electrical cables and copper wires, and tens of tons of miscellaneous units and parts related to electrical power facilities from the nearby city of Therese. Hence, sufficient raw materials for the creation of the second batch of 10 wind turbines had been gathered. The general capsule factory had already been put to work. After an estimated 10 days, the wind farm to the east of the huge crater would expand twice its size. It was estimated that the electrical power that the wind farm supplied would also double to 500 kilowatts and above. The quantity of the robots had also been increased from 100 to 300. Labor became more abundant. In addition, the large-sized vehicles like the rover, transport truck, and tow truck, were increased from 1 of each to a total of 20, meaning that transportation capability had been greatly increased. Under the direction of the AI, Alice, the construction of various facilities at the campground was still speeding up. This helped Chen Jin save much of his mental energy. For many tasks, he only had to articulate his own requirements and the results that he wanted. Alice grasped his meaning easily and would quickly arrange for the robots to complete the tasks that he had set. After all, as an AI, Alice's intellectual ability far surpassed those robots who only knew how to carry out inflexible tasks and commands. Moreover, Alice had the greatest interaction with humans as their city management system. Or it should be said that what she managed was the humans. How could she not understand the meanings that humans expressed and the tasks they ordered? So, even if Chen Jin was not usually present at the campground, Alice could still follow his commands accordingly. She completed the construction work on various facilities at the campground efficiently and methodically. She could displace the use of humans. This was the significance of the existence of ACE. Therefore, under Alice's scientific and logical planning, the construction speed of the campground's facilities had clearly shifted to a higher gear. One could see the fledgling stage of Chen Jin's vision as it was slowly transformed into the image of his planned base of operations. Not bad. With a little bit more time, the campground at the huge crater could be upgraded to a small-scale base of operations. Obviously, in comparison to the camping ground, a base of operations could be said to be a higher quality upgrade. For example, the infrastructure was greatly improved. The number of supplies was greater and with more variety. The environment felt more comfortable, and the furnished facilities were better. More importantly, the ability to explore and remodel this planet would also be enhanced. In the blueprint that he designed, his base of operations was like this: there would be more than 100 metal-constructed amenities and residential facilities. They would then form a complex of buildings. The 100-plus capsule factories would form an industrial zone. The number of rovers, transportation trucks, and tow trucks would be increased to over 100. This would create a raiding squad of unbeatable force. He would also expand the scale of the wind farms such that the power supplied could reach 1,000 kilowatts or even more. The number of robots would be increased to over 500. When all the above goals had been met, the upgrading of the campground would be complete. Alice replied after a series of virtual calculations, "Master, it will take only about 2.5 months to complete all the construction work. However, Master, you would need to provide some of the supplies." "No problem." Chen nodded as his face filled with anticipation. Actually, in his imagination, the final state of his base of operations would be a mid-sized city. He had to at least fill up the crater under his feet with its diameter of 10 kilometers. By that time, this place would not be called a base of operations, but a crater civilization. A civilization that he had created out of a crater. But, that was still too far away. Chen Jin could only occasionally think about it in his heart. Lastly, within this recent period, the robots had also gained some definite results from the exploration of the campground's surrounding areas. It was because there was a flying car at the campground. It could rise thousands of meters into the air and fly at high altitudes. Its fastest flying speed was 800 kilometers, similar to its longest travel distance, also around 800 kilometers. This had greatly increased the efficiency of exploration. The surrounding areas of the campground ranged at 400 kilometers while the travel ability of the flying car was 800 kilometers. Divided by 2, it could certainly speed up the actualization of the exploration. According to the calculations of a circular area, the area of a range measuring 400 kilometers in circumference would be more than 500,000 square kilometers. It was equivalent to the area of a large province in his country. With Higher Fa's previous level of prosperity, there should be at least a population of 30 million or above living in such a huge area. 80% of the population would be living in cities. Hypothesizing that there was a population of 500,000 living in each city, in a range with its circumference measuring 400 kilometers, there should be at least 48 cities. The robots operated Air Number 1 and Air Number 2, taking them out for an exploration trip. After they surveyed the grounds from the air and combed through the range measuring 400 kilometers in circumference, they actually only found a total of 23 cities. Of those, there were 5 cities in the north and 18 in the south. 19 were impacted by nuclear bombing. There were only 4 that were more or less undamaged. There were also countless smaller cities, towns, and villages that were buried under thick layers of sand. The most that one could see of them were half of a roof or the spiral tip of a lightning protection device placed atop a clock house. Perhaps, after more time had passed, the countless traces of human civilization would become cultural artifacts buried deeply underground. They would probably never see the light of day again. In addition, the robots also found the existence of several mining sites, suburban chemical factories, oil refineries, and power plants. However, the majority were destroyed by conventional weapons. Only a few mining sites were worth a trip to explore. In addition, Dali said with regards to the possibility of survivors, "Master, we've discovered that there are more emergency shelters and cities to the south. The probability of the existence of survivors would be greater there." After the eruption of the destructive war, a nuclear winter happened, causing the temperature of the north to rapidly decrease. Only the low-latitude areas in the south were suitable for humans to live in. Aerial dust was lesser. In our explorations, we've found wooded areas, grasslands, and animals in the coastal areas to the south. This clearly means that the land could already grow food. Since there is the existence of food, once the survivors get their hands on that food, they can live, multiply, and welcome the birth of a new civilization. Dali said agitatedly, "We should send out another squad to focus on finding the whereabouts of those survivors." However, Chen Jin sank into silent thoughts. Food. Survivors. With a lack of interest, he casually laughed, There's no rush. For now, there's no hurry to do this. We'll certainly conduct a search. But for now, we are plenty busy and can't afford to take out manpower for this. The survivors. We'll find them later. Dali was very astonished. Is there anything more important than searching for your fellow humans? How will this planet be rebirthed without sufficient humans? Perhaps. This is the reason and significance behind the creation of the rebooted virus in my body. Within Dali's eyes, its green-colored gaze that was filled with hope and anticipation slowly dimmed. Humans were too complicated. It was unable to comprehend. Chapter 50, Seeing High Technologies. On the 18th of November, at the Bureau of Industry and Commerce, Chen Jin brought his dad along to do the paperwork pertaining to the change of the company's legal representative. It was with regards to the small factory in Baoshan Industrial Park used for charging the high-efficiency batteries. Its legal representative was changed from his dad, who took up a temporary position as its CEO for a few months, to Chen Jin himself. Dad was downgraded to a technical consultant. The shares that he held was decreased to 0%. Chen Jin held all 100% of the shares in this company, even though it temporarily had 0 assets. Chen Gang did not really dare to risk playing dirty tricks like this, running circles around the law. He did not know what was Chen Jin thinking. Chen Gang quickly left the bureau after speedily signing the form for the change of legal representative. He would not interfere with whatever his son wanted to do in the future. After all, he had his own job to do. The failure rate of a new business is very high nowadays. And this little fellow still wants to earn an annual profit of 10 billion. I think it's enough that he does not lose all this principle. In reality, Chen Gang did not really approve of his son starting his own business. In the past, there were colleagues with great technical and personal skills in his circle who quit their jobs to become entrepreneurs. In the end, most of their business failed and they had to give up. There were a few cases where they owed a series of debts and jumped to their death. Of course, there were those who became successful entrepreneurs, but they were very rare. Those who stayed in the state enterprise had more stable lives. It was difficult to become very rich, but it was safe and easy to become a little rich. It would not be a roller coaster ride with dramatic ups and downs. Moreover, he had already passed 50 years of age. He no longer had the lofty ambitions of his youth. For many of his major decisions, he leaned towards the conservative and stable options. However, he did not wholly oppose Chen Jin starting his own business. After all, his son was only 24 years old. He had plenty of chances to have trial and error and make mistakes. As long as he did not commit major blunders, it would be fine for him to spread his wings for a few years. Director Dong Lei, who was in charge of receiving Chen Jin's case at the Bureau of Industry and Commerce, was even more shocked about his business. This fellow had just opened his jewelry shop a few days ago and now he was actually opening another company again. It was registered under the category of High Technology Research and Development, or High-Tech R&D. He had decided to make a business in the high-tech research and development sector. During the administrative process of changing the company's legal representative, she could not help but ask a few questions. Xiao Chen, didn't your jewelry shop just open for business? Why did you start a new company again? Can you manage so many units? Chen Jin explained, the jewelry shop is only my sideline. Store manager Chu will be handling it. This company here is my primary business. It will be my most important enterprise in the future. Donglei nodded, and understanding dawned in an instant. She realized that the boy in front of her was very smart. Nowadays, within the industries dealing in physical goods, jewelry shops were considered one of those that could survive rather well. Also, starting one's own enterprise was a gamble. A high-stakes gamble. She had seen the statistic reports from the Bureau. There were some numbers that shocked her. The failure rate of the startups in the high-tech/internet sectors was over 80%. The average lifespan of a high-tech/internet company was no more than 18 months. Hence there were many companies that entered the market with values over hundreds, even thousands of millions. However, if they did not have a competitive edge, they still faced bankruptcy, were forced to exit the market, or were bought by a third-party company. All of this could happen within a short period of 2 to 3 months. Considering that he was facing such enormous risks, the young man in front of her seemed to be well prepared even if things went south. If his startup was successful, he would continue expanding it and move towards his goals. If it failed, he could still rely on the jewelry shop as his backup plan. He would not be completely wiped out. Dong Lei asked with a face full of concern, Xiao Chen, why do you want to enter the high-tech sector? This sector has high barriers of entry, long periods of R&D, and requires huge investment funds. The market is highly competitive too. Do you have confidence in yourself? She did not know why she was so earnest. Although he was nobody to her, she paid much more attention to him than other entrepreneurs. She was worried that his business would fail. Auntie Dong, rest assured. I'll definitely succeed. Chen Jin radiated confidence as if he had everything planned out in his mind. This was not being egotistic. He explained his reasons. I specialized in mechanical design in university and graduated from a respectable science class. I have an in-depth understanding of the industry I'm about to enter, it's very familiar to me. In addition, the product that I plan to do R&D on is a small-scale robot about the size of a rice cooker. It's not big and does not require huge funds for R&D. I can definitely create the product with an investment of just $20 million to $30 million. Moreover, my dad is working in a commercial aircraft company and knows many bigwigs. If I meet with any technical troubles, I'll get advice from him. Any troubles should be quickly resolved. Graduated from a science class and small investment and strong technical support. The sum of these 3 advantages was akin to putting on 3 pairs of wings. It would be a challenge to not fly up to the heavens. Therefore, it was impossible to fail. Dong Lei nodded her head repeatedly. There was an additional element of appreciation in her perception of him. Steady. Very steady. This fellow was underestimating the difficulties that he did not yet know but would soon face. He had a faint air of blind optimism about him. However, in comparison to some of the young entrepreneurs that she had come across, he could be said to be the more realistic one. Those young entrepreneurs were overly confident, their heads were so big. They were also egotistic and snobbish, thinking that they could surpass Bill Gates with just a single idea. With her decades of working experience in the Bureau of Industry and Commerce and countless interactions with entrepreneurs, she had perfected a pair of eagle eyes. With one look at their behavior, she could tell who would succeed or fail. She had an accuracy rate of over 95% when it came to guessing the final ending. When Chen Jin explained the 3 advantages that he possessed, Dong Lei gave him a general assessment in her mind. The probability that his business would not fail was 50%. She could only give the probability of not a failure. It was simply too difficult to succeed. The prior elements needed for success were too numerous. Even if Chen Jin developed the robot and introduced it into the market, she dare not claim that it would be successful, because products and markets were two entirely different things. Xiao Chen, do it well. I believe in your success. You can approach me if you ever meet with any difficulty, including funding issues. I'll definitely help in any area that I can. Dong Lei cheered for him, even expressing that she could help to resolve any financial issues that he might meet with. She had never said anything like this to any other entrepreneur. Taking the completed contract, Chen Jin said sincerely, "It's okay, I possess sufficient funds. Auntie Dong, thank you for caring so much. When this company succeeds, you can't postpone our meal anymore. I've never properly thanked you, we must go out for a meal." Dong Lei smiled, "Okay, I'll definitely go when you succeed." She watched his back as he left. That night in his bedroom, Chen Jin smiled as he looked upon the bolded and enlarged characters on the title page of the contact. AOU Xinghai Technologies, Private Limited. He had also shortened it to Xinghai Technologies. This was the name he gave to the high-tech company that he had established. When he was registering his company, he had wanted to put down Xinghai Technologies, but the name was already registered by someone else. Xing Chen High Technologies, Zhangfu Xing Kong Technologies, Haohan Xinghai Technologies. All these names had already been registered by others. Only AOU Xinghai Technologies could be successfully registered by Chen Jin, albeit reluctantly. The name was unused for a long time after registration, so it had been voided and was now available. When my company is sufficiently powerful, I will buy up the company called Xinghai Technologies. I'll take back the name that belongs to my company. The company name of AOU Xinghai Technologies would only be used for a period of time. He put down the contract. A glance into the bathroom helped him see Wa, who was holding a rotating brush and scrubbing the toilet bowl with all its strength. The porcelain cubicle was scrubbed so clean it resembled the pale and tender buttocks of a baby. Waving his hand towards it, he said, "Wa, put down the brush and come to master." Clack, clack, clack. Throwing down the toothbrush, Wa scuttled obediently towards him. Chapter 51, High-Tech Wa. Yup. Robot vacuum cleaner. That was the first project Chen Jin planned on doing for his startup business. In fact, he had already decided to develop robot vacuum cleaners like Wa on Earth a long time ago. He would then sell the robot vacuums to thousands of families, saving the housewives from doing endless house chores. A very promising market prospect indeed. The truth was, it didn't require advanced technology to build robot vacuum cleaners. There was already a great number of products like that on Earth, forming a fairly mature market. But it was just civil technology, nothing high-tech. So Chen Jin chose to start with the industry that had relatively easier requirements, and launch the killer robot vacuum that was capable of keeping the floor sparkly clean with much better cleaning features, leaving the rest of the robot vacuums in the dust. For instance, Wa cleaned his bedroom at least 10 times a day. It kept the room so clean that anyone with OCD would feel utterly comfortable in there. Likewise, anyone without OCD would leave his room with a slowly growing OCD habit. No one would be able to find even the tiniest grain of dust. It was just as clean as a dust-free laboratory. Would any other robot vacuum cleaner in the market be able to do that? Absolutely not. Another example that made the most significant difference was that most of the robot vacuums in the market only did sweeping here and there, making sure all the corners in the house were taken care of. It was like cows plowing on rice fields, moving all over the place without paying attention to the areas that required cleaning the most. On the other hand, Wa wouldn't just sweep around the house like it was plowing on fields. What was good about it was that it would detect the dirtiest area, focus on it, and take care of it until it was as good as the cleanest spot in the house. Intellectually, Wa had never seen a set of tail lights. "Come, Wa. Let's do a little test. We'll have Alice scan you and see if she can analyze the technology that designed you." Chen Jin picked it up and walked towards the bathroom. In the bathroom, the round portal that had a diameter of 1 meter and was always sitting above the toilet tank was not the same as before. It was no longer hiding behind the shower curtain, because Chen Jin had installed a toughened glass sliding door, with one side painted black and the other reflective material, in the metal house on the other side of the portal. He'd taught himself some renovation skills and built a wooden mirror frame around the portal, hanging it on the wall behind the toilet. Once the sliding door was closed, the old floating, semi-transparent portal would then look just like an ordinary mirror on the wall. Anyone that walked in there wouldn't notice anything unusual, even if he got close to the mirror and touched it. Unless someone had nothing else better to do and decided to smash it with a hammer, no one would find anything strange about his bathroom. The portal had become a mirror. His secrets were now safer than ever. But deep down, Chen Jin knew that no matter how well he concealed it, it was still not entirely safe, as the portal was not movable. And his mother could come into his room any time, even though she rarely did so. He needed to come up with a more reliable solution to completely remove this problem. First of all, I must make Hierophant mine. My property, all mine. It doesn't matter if it gets exposed in the future or not. I'll kill whoever tries to come through the portal and steal my stuff or even takes over the planet. I'll kill them all. Or, I can steadily build up my security level, make a lot of money, and become a super tycoon. I'll have power and territory, then I'll buy the entire happiness court, and arrange 1,000 robots to guard the court, keeping unauthorized people away and my secrets safe. So, whether it was on Earth or Hierophant, for the sake of his secrets, Chen Jin knew he had to do his very best to make money, gain fame, or even pick up trash in the other world, to get to the very end of his path of success. Because only then, only when you've become a man of power and strength, would you be able to protect anything that belonged to you. Worrying about this and that all day long would never help you keep anything. He pushed open the sliding door, bent over, picked up Wa, and went through the portal. From the other world, he closed the black painted door. The portal was still quite unnoticeable, or very well camouflaged, even from the bedroom on the second floor of the metal house. After scanning Wa with an X-ray and radar sensor, Chen Jin couldn't help but ask Alice, "So, what do you think, Alice? Can we produce more robot vacuum cleaners like Wa with our capsule factories and current technology?" "I'm afraid not, Master. We're not yet capable of producing such robot vacuum cleaners like Wa with our current skill and supplies, even though it was designed with outdated technology from over 100 years ago." Artificial intelligence, Alice explained, "We need at least 3 more critical skills to build a robot like that. First, the technology to produce high-efficiency batteries. Wa runs on a high-efficiency battery that weighs 500 gram, which was made with highly advanced nano-enhanced materials. Not only does it have excellent stability, but magnificent energy density as well. Once connected with the power of 2 kWh, the density is the equivalent of gasoline with the same weight. However, burning gasoline only brings out 50–60% energy utilization. For high-efficiency batteries, on the other hand, the energy utilization efficiency is usually higher than 90%. Therefore, it would be perfectly safe to say that the energy density of the said batteries is much higher than gasoline." Alice continued to explain, "Second, the technology for smart chip manufacturing is needed. There is a smart chip the size of a beer cap on Wa's motherboard. It is a combination of CPU and NPU. In addition, the clock rate of the Graph-Hane-made CPU can go up to 100 GHz, and there were 1 billion neurons in the neural network for the dual-core NPU, 140 billion neurons for a human brain. Intellectually, Wa has the brain of a 10-year-old child, possessing the ability to learn as humans do. Needless to say, a chip like this was considered low-tech on Hierophant, but even then, the capsule factories for automotive industry weren't advanced enough for these chips, not even the silicone ones that had become obsolete. They required much more cutting-edge technology. There was no way Chen Jin could produce chips like that unless they found the capsule factories designed for this kind of production. Third, we need materials and technology. Wa was made with all sorts of high-performance materials, which had corrosion resistance, extreme temperatures resistance, and the capability of killing all the microorganisms on surfaces, avoiding any possible contact with poisonous or harmful substances to help robot vacuum cleaners remain functional. For instance, the 2 seemingly insignificant continuous tracks underneath the cleaner are actually capable of resisting the heat of up to 3000 degrees. In addition, even after decades of work, Wa could still function perfectly with only a few parts that are slightly worn out. In short, this ordinary robot vacuum cleaner is really not ordinary at all. After Alice explained all that, Chen Jin shook his head with his mouth somewhat opened. There is absolutely no way I could take this back to Earth with me. The people here were years ahead of us in the technology race. I mean, just look at this simple robot vacuum cleaner. On the other hand, he was only planning on building the kind of robot vacuum cleaners that would keep floors tidy and dirt-free. He didn't care much about everything else in terms of battery life or materials, or the intelligent chips for CPU and NPU. So, all he had to do was change the ways the robot vacuums worked through the computing methods on their system software, which would make them not as intelligent, but smarter than the ones on Earth. Alice, here's your assignment. Design a robot vacuum cleaner that works just as well as WAWA, but with the most ordinary materials, lithium-ion batteries, and silicon chips using the technology from 200 years ago. Can you do such a thing within a few days, Alice? Combining both Earth's current technology and the advantages of the software on higher FA, Chen Jin had decided to develop a kind of robot vacuum cleaner that was slightly smarter than the ones on Earth. No problem, Master. I will finish it in 3 days, Alice responded with confidence. The motherboard, CPU, smart chips, actually, and RAM that were all dismantled before to solve the power shortage problem had all been reinstalled, increasing 98% of her performance, with a clock rate that could go up to 98 billion GHz. Designing a simple robot vacuum cleaner with the technology from 200 years ago was too easy for her. Perfect. Chen Jin nodded. This AI Alice was impressively amazing. Chapter 52, Recruiting. After deciding what his startup business was aiming at, what he needed to do next was recruit. Obviously, he couldn't do this all on his own, he had to hire some people to develop the robot vacuum cleaners with him. He only had a rough idea about mechanics designs, he understood the theory and was definitely capable of hands-on operation, but building a robot was another story. He couldn't do it by himself. AI Alice was extremely helpful in terms of software, but for the hardware, Chen Jin had to deal with it. He must recruit a team. Just as he was about to post recruitment advertisements all over the internet, a headline caught his attention. 6 school teams fight against one another as the National Robotics Competition enters finals. As soon as he finished reading the news article, he booked himself a flight and off he went, to the Northwestern Industrial University in West Coast City. 3 days later, Chen Jin came home exhausted. There were 6 young people that got off the plane with him, 4 men and 2 women. Being in an international city like Shanghai for the first time, their faces were filled with happiness and excitement, sharing with each other about everything and anything that was happening. Wow! Shanghai! The city is massive. Yeah, I can feel the dampness coming from the ocean. It's humid here, which is better than our dry weather back home, excellent for my skin, said the woman with pimples all over her face. Exactly. Let us all follow Mr. Chen and fulfill ourselves professionally in this city. Zhang Jiwei. Do you have your backpack with you? Don't lose our championship trophy and the certificate of merit, said the rather good-looking man walking in the front. Yes, I've got them. Both the trophy and the certificate are in my backpack. I won't lose them. See. Zhang Jiwei lifted his backpack high up so his captain Su Yuji could see. Chen Jin couldn't help but smile as he listened to their conversation. Exactly. He had employed the team that won the championship at the National Robotics Competition and tricked them into coming to Shanghai with him. Yes. Tricked, because there was a great number of big companies fighting against each other, trying to get this team to work for them. There were large state-owned businesses, foreign companies from Fortune Global 500, private-owned companies that offered $75,000 annual income, and even a state-owned military company that built tanks offered excellent salary and benefits like housing, cars, and great retirement care. Chen Jin had nothing to compete with all those large companies, but he won. He beat all the competitors and won the team over. How? What was the secret? Well, it was nothing special. Just money. He offered a ton of money. He was determined to win the team at any cost. He had even solved 2 major problems for them in 3 days. For instance, the captain Su Yuji's girlfriend, who was the most beautiful girl in his school and a gorgeous flight attendant, had been really fussy with him lately because some rich man had been pursuing her. She'd been giving the captain the cold shoulder, complaining about how poor he was. Su Yuji wanted to save their relationship and win her back. Chen Jin put on an act for the captain's benefit, taking him to the Ford's car shop along with the girlfriend, and purchased a $50,000 car. It was his salary advance, of course. They then signed the contract that promised to give him an annual salary of $150,000 in front of his pretty little girlfriend. She, without any hesitation, changed her attitude completely and had a big smile on her face afterward, treating him sweeter than ever before. Chen Jin shook his head with a heavy sigh. He didn't quite understand why someone so talented like Su Yuji would fall for a gold digger like her. Another example was when the deputy captain Jo Kun had a financial crisis at home. His father had stage 4 uremia and needed a kidney transplant, but they couldn't afford the medical expenses, which were at least $150,000. To help solve the problem, the whole team worked their heads off to win the championship so they could use the prize money to pay for his father's medical expenses. However, $45,000 was not enough, they needed $105,000 more to cover everything. So, in response to every single company that came forward, Jo Kun asked for a $105,000 salary advance. If they agreed to it, he would do anything for the company for the rest of his life. No company agreed to such a deal. They were not charities, after all. I'll pay for it. Chen Jin stepped up, as countless eyes stared at him in disbelief. I will give you a $105,000 salary advance and arrange your father for surgery, as long as you sign the contract. He handed him 2 sets of documents. Done. Jo Kun signed it without the slightest hesitation. And just like that, Chen Jin successfully won the 2 best members of the team, the captain and the deputy. Seeing the $3,000 salary they would be making if they passed probation, the remaining 4 members, Zhang Jiwei, Xiao Sa, Wu Lei and Yang Chuying, also signed the contract promptly. The entire team now belonged to him. And soon, Jo Kun's father was transferred to the best hospital in Shanghai. In short, this recruitment trip had cost Chen Jin a fortune. Chen Jin booked a luxury hotel for the team to stay at. The next morning, Chen Jin took them to the small factory in Baoshan Industrial Park and showed them around. All 6 of them were speechless. They looked at Chen Jin, tilting their heads in confusion. This was where they'd be working at? A factory with no facilities whatsoever? Ahem, Chen Jin made some noises to draw their attention and explained, no, the place does not look legit. But don't worry, all the facilities and equipment will arrive shortly. Anything you need. Y'all have heard of Jobs, right? Or Sergey, the CEO founder of Google? They started their businesses in a shady garage. But what we have isn't a garage. It's better than that. Chen Jin had to tell them some chick soup story, seeing no one was impressed by the place. Su Yuji shrugged his shoulders, looking indifferent. Those guys had all sorts of tools in their garages. Here, we literally have nothing. Nonetheless, they'd already signed the contract and agreed to work for him. They couldn't turn their back on him now. After all, that was how startup businesses began. You start from scratch. Throughout the next few days, Chen Jin listened to Su Yuji and Jo Kun's advice and placed multiple orders from various factories, purchasing all the necessary equipment, including a small CNC machine tool, a press machine tool, a laser processing machine, a cutting machine, a polisher, a welding machine, and a large amount of circuit boards, as well as electronic components, control switches and wires, all of which cost him a total of $2.7 million. Not only did the equipment come in all kinds of designs, but in medium to high quality, too. They did not choose the cheap ones to cut down on the expenses, which convinced the team even more than their boss was a true entrepreneur. In the meantime, working together like that had settled and eased the team's anxious mind. As the equipment arrived one after another, they began to fulfill their duties, entering the first stage of the technology they had planned on developing. Chapter 53, Robot Wa. Now that he had his own research and development team, as the owner of the company, Chen Jin told Su Yuji, Jo Kun and the rest of the team what the new product they were developing was. It was a robot vacuum cleaner. Moreover, he also made it clear that the making of robot vacuums should have the following requirements. 1. It will have the ability to clean 99.9% of the dirt off the floor. 2. It will have a smart cleaning mode that can clean 50% faster and more efficiently than the other robot cleaners in the market, saving time and power for the users. 3. Keep the manufacturing cost less than $225 per unit. Furthermore, Chen Jin even showed them dozens of blueprints that he made, explaining the plans and his ideas regarding the development of the robot vacuum cleaner. It was so detailed that even the subsystem structures, the specific working principles, and the computation of smart cleaning procedures were covered. All in all, the proposal was thorough, complete, and logical. And it was highly feasible. So Yuji, Zhou Kun, and the rest of the team were all stunned, looking at Chen Jin in astonishment. The owner of this company doesn't just have money, he definitely doesn't know any less than any of the team members in terms of mechanics designs. He had impressed the team with his professional insights, which completely changed the way they looked at him, making them put aside the contempt they secretly had for him before. Naturally, they offered their opinions, too. Mr. Chen, the best robot vacuum cleaner in the current market is the iRobot from America. It claims to have the ability to clean 98.8% of the dirt off the floor, which is very high. Wouldn't it be difficult to increase the percentage to 99.9%? Wu Lei asked. Agreed, 99.9% is extremely high. Even humans couldn't keep the floors that clean. Besides, the smarter the robot vacuums, the higher the costs. Perhaps we should lower the percentage a little, say 99%. Zhang Jiwei added as he adjusted his glasses that were as thick as the glass of a beer bottle. Nope. We will not lower the target number. Chen Jin shook his head. The core competency for our robot vacuum cleaner is the best cleaner. We can lower the goals for other features, but not this one. Then something classic came out of his mouth. We must let the costumers experience the wonders of technology. I get it now, sir. Wu Lei, Zhang Jiwei, and the rest of the team nodded as they listened. Except the captain, Su Yuji, who was deep in thought, studying the blueprint very carefully. He nodded from time to time when he agreed with the plan, and shook his head subtly when he did not. He put down the blueprint and looked up. Mr. Chen, there is nothing wrong with the design, the robot vacuum cleaners we are developing can definitely function well. However, it is a humanoid robot vacuum cleaner, not the typical disc-shaped kind. With all due respect, sir, this will undoubtedly bring many problems regarding the complex structures and control procedures. The making of the joints and the HD camera system in the head will increase our costs, which could easily go over $300. Therefore, I'm afraid that keeping the budget under $225 is very unlikely. Growing up in a middle-class family had made So Yuji somewhat financially sensitive. Besides, he'd been playing with robots for more than 10 years. It was not too hard to spot the problem with this plan. It was costly. And as it should be. That was why they were rarely seen in the civil engineering market. Any humanoid robot would be extremely expensive to develop. More than $300? What if I sold more than 1 million of these robot vacuums? Chen Jin allowed himself a wry smile and asked, would that bring the cost down to somewhere around $225? 1 million. The number had apparently surprised Su Yuji. We should be able to cut down 20% of the cost through mass production, he replied, nodding. But Demi Robot Vacuum Cleaner is the most popular brand in the current market, $250 each. The company has only sold more than 1 million units a year after launching. And that's the best-selling model. Compared to other appliances like TVs, refrigerators, washing machines, and ACs, robot vacuum cleaners aren't exactly a necessity, as most families hire cleaners to do the job for them. Besides, the economy in our country has just started to grow. Unless the target customer is financially comfortable, no one would want to buy it otherwise. Unnecessary luxury goods is the awkward product positioning for our robot vacuums. In addition, the robot vacuum from Shanghai Technology is still on the blueprint, it's not yet developed. The estimated cost per unit is already over $225, let alone the market price we offer to recoup the expensive costs after our product goes through different channels. High prices lead to low sales. Mr. Chen, in my humble opinion, I think it's best that we just develop the traditional robot vacuum cleaners, Su Yuji suggested. Mr. Chen, Yuji has a good point. It is the market environment dynamics we need to put into consideration the most. We ought to develop the products the market desires the most. Zhou Kun nodded and agreed with Su Yuji. No. Chen Jin waved off their suggestion. If a product is actually good, it will create its own market itself. Only an ordinary product would have to be tailored to meet the market needs, which is the kind of homogeneous competition Shanghai Technology will not participate in. I understand your concerns, and they make perfect sense. However, I will not make any adjustment to the plan. You just work together, with all your professional knowledge, and develop the robot vacuum cleaner according to this blueprint that I have created. Chen Jin concluded firmly. It was the AI Alice who made this blueprint after thorough research on the history of robots on Higher Fa. She made this design based on a model, WA1, yes, 2 generations before WAWA, which was almost the same as WAWA 3. At a tremendous sales volume of 90 million units, WAWA 1, the first domestic humanoid robot on Haier-Fa, made a massive success back then after being launched in the market. All the roads to great success were similar. With this heaven-sent example in front of him, Chen Jin was convinced that he would no doubt achieve his goal as long as he followed the pattern. As a result, he refused to pay attention to any of the negative opinions or advice given to him. All right. So Yuji and Zhou Kun bit their tongue as they gave each other a look. They were no longer the free team that they used to be, they had become Mr. Chen's employees, who should listen and do as they were told. For me, I actually quite like the robot Mr. Chen designed. It is adorable. I would definitely buy one if there really was a robot like that on the market. Xiao Sa, one of the female members of the team, looked at the blueprint as she propped her chin in the palm of her hand, pursing her lips with countless little stars in her eyes. I know, right? This robot that Mr. Chen designed is too cute. I can't wait to develop it and launch it in the market. The other female member, Yang Chuying, nodded with excitement. She loved the humanoid robot, too. Generally speaking, it is the females in most families that are in charge of the cleaning. They are emotional creatures who can't resist the cuteness of things and would empty their bank accounts for anything pretty. In the ecstasy of that thought, the eyes of Soyuji and Zhou Kun were once again wide open. Mr. Chen, have you named the robot yet? I think it should have a name, Xiao Sa asked out of curiosity. Of course. It's called WAWA. Robot WAWA, Chen Jin said, smiling. WAWA? Not knowing what to say, they all looked at each other in doubt and confusion. It wasn't exactly the kind of name they were expecting. Relax. You'll see why, Chen Jin assured them with a mysterious look on his face. Chapter 54, I found a military base. Hiring these professionals to do professional things was a good idea. Developing a robot involved a series of complex tasks, such as the making of electric devices, integrated circuits and chips, fabricating parts, and wireless control, etc. Chen Jin was a layman in this field. It was all Greek him. He had given everything that he'd learned in school back to his professors. Surely, he could start over and learn as he went, but it would take him years before he became a professional. Each of the team members that he had employed had at least 6 years of experience in this field. They had built hundreds of robots in their lives, repairing and operating countless of them. Every single one of them had their own specialty and advantages in various cases. The captain, Soyuji, excelled at hardware programming, taking charge of almost all of the bottom layers of procedures. The deputy captain, Zhou Kun, was second to none in the field of integrated circuits, and could cover everything that needed to be done on the motherboards all on his own. Team member Wu Lei, who was an expert in operating machines like CNC machine tools, press machine tools, and so forth, was in charge of fabricating all of the essential parts. Zhang Jiwei, who was also a valued member of the team, was the best at modifying and operating robots, and an excellent tester. The remaining 2 female members included one who was brilliant at designing blueprints and circuit diagrams, while the other excelled in encrypting communications and securing important data. In short, everyone had an important role to play in this team. Having officially made a decision on the project development, everyone was fully engaged in their designated tasks to fulfill the needs and realize the schemes of their goals. Chen Jin never asked them to work overtime, yet they still buried themselves in work. On average, they worked 11 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. To them, developing a robot was like inventing a toy. The process might be challenging and require a considerable amount of time and effort, but it was fun and brought them great joy. The workload was heavy yet pleasurable. No other job in the market could possibly bring them the kind of fulfillment and happiness this job did. As the owner of the company, Chen Jin also participated in their discussions, communicating with one another. In the process, he learned like a sponge, absorbing lots of knowledge in the field as he worked with the team. For example, he learned from Soyuji about hardware programming and had tried to write a few lines of code, which gave him a deeper understanding of computation. Apart from that, he had also practiced integrated circuits with Zhou Kun. However, all the messy circuits on the motherboard soon changed his mind and made him give up on the lessons that puzzled and frustrated him. Nah, forget it. It is way over my head. It's too complicated. I give up. Chen Jin shook his head as he surrendered to this complex concept. Mr. Chen, you are very good with your hands, and your blueprints are great too, which shows that you have the potential to become a mechanical designer. I will walk you through it, step by step. Not all the integrated circuits are hard to comprehend, there are some easy ones that you can quickly grasp and master. Zhou Kun was greatly impressed and noticed that his boss was a diamond in the rough. He had the ability to manipulate the complicated mechanical structures in a skillful manner and remain focused when working, allowing him to finish the task without any mistakes or missing parts. Moreover, Chen Jin was also able to fabricate some parts that had simple structures that also met the standards, after learning how to operate the CNC machine tool from Wu Lei. In a few words, Zhou Kun thought it would be a total waste if he didn't polish this diamond. It was as if Chen Jin's whole existence was made for these robots. Little did Zhou Kun know, however, that Chen Jin acquired the excellent skills with his hands from assembling dozens of anime figures. As for the blueprints, he drew it on a piece of paper following the outline of the 3D image AI. Alice projected. There really wasn't much talent in it. Forget it, really. I can't do it. I'll try something else. The integrated circuits just give me headaches. Chen Jin waved him off, turning down his kind offer. At the end of the day, he was the owner of the company, all he had to do was to make sure the team was going in the right direction. Perhaps he'd learn a thing or two along the way, but essentially, the R&D personnel should do the job that he hired them for. Just like Jobs, the founder of the famous fruit company, who didn't know anything about coding, yet he created a legend. And it was Chen Jin's goal to become someone like him. And then, thanks to the superb team that they were, their first prototype robot Wa was born in less than a month's time. Soon, they would be able to do the prototype testing. At the base of operation on planet Higher Fa, Chen Jin hadn't spent much time there recently, as he had been busy with the development of the robot vacuum cleaner on Earth. He decided to come to take a look tonight as a matter of routine. Master, major discovery. Our expedition team found something magnificent on the west side of the base yesterday. Robot Dali quickly came over to Chen Jin to report this great news. What? What did you find? His eyes widened upon hearing this news. Our expedition team found a military base 380 kilometers to the west of our base. A military base? Naturally, Chen Jin was exhilarated by the news. In fact, he had already learned the situation around their base of operation after having found the maps of Melika, the powerful country, before it was wiped out. He had even gained a rough understanding of the geographical features around the planet. AI. Alice had kept an extremely precise digital map that covered even the small towns that had a population of over 100 after the supercalculator was restored, including some mysterious military bases and facilities. Theoretically, all the airports, cities, and quarries in Melika could be easily found as long as you followed the labels and dimensions on the digital map. Sadly, though, everything on Higher Fa was buried in thick, yellow sands after the war broke out, and the long, nuclear winter lasted 20 years, the entire planet was utterly unrecognized, as a large scale of the land got threatened by desertification. The only thing you would find with the map was an endless sea of deserts. However, there was no doubt that the team did find a military base on the west side of their base of operation. And it was a massive one. For sure, it showed up on the digital map. On the other hand, there had to be a reason why there was a large valley battlefield covered in thousands of robot wreckage 30 kilometers to the northwest of their base. Moreover, even for high-efficiency batteries, it was very unlikely for the robots to last longer than 500 kilometers, therefore, there must be a base camp within 500 kilometers where the robots could repair, recharge, and refill. It would be almost impossible for them to reach anywhere further than 500 kilometers otherwise. Chen Jin sent the expedition team out to the desert west of their base 3 months ago in search of something like this. Finally, the team did not disappoint, and proudly returned with their mission accomplished. Alice, put the operation in Fort Worth City on hold, and allocate 100 robots and 20 transporters to the military base fully charged, please, and bring 3 extra sets of batteries. And let the plundering begin. Yes, Master, Alice answered. Chapter 55, A Rewarding Journey. Before long, the research convoy had set out on their journey. It didn't take them too much time to prepare everything. The estimated travel time was 12 hours. This time, Chen Jin didn't go with the research team, instead, he stayed behind and planned on giving orders and demands remotely. It wasn't that he didn't want to be there with them, but 380 kilometers really was a bit far. Even though the flying cars could go unexpectedly fast, he was worried he'd get lost in the desert. Therefore, he decided to stay where he was just to be on the safe side. From there, Chen Jin was able to see what was happening through the images Alice projected from the 8 HD video windows the robots transmitted, as he had arranged some robots that served as signal receivers and transmitters every 100 kilometers along the way to the military base. With the help of these robots, he could effortlessly supervise and oversee every corner panoramically through all 8 windows. It was much easier than being on the scene. Soon, the research convoy had arrived at the military base, a barren land that was completely buried in sand and dust. Ultimately, the team dug out the corner of a house, which was actually the roof of a 2-floor bungalow, realizing that it was where the military base was. As it turned out, it was an underground military base. Most of the facilities were built meters deep under the ground, protected by thick walls of rocks. Before entering the military base, the robots had to shovel the thick piles of sand away from the front door of the bungalow. Lifting a piece of floor tile in the house, the team walked down to an underground passageway. Soon after, the robot with the flashlight led the team through the dark passage to the underground base. On the way to their destination, there were 7 or 8 locked metal doors. Not knowing what the passwords were, the robots cut them open with their laser. In addition to the locked metal doors, they also ran into some flame-throwing sensors that attacked them aggressively. Luckily, the attack only lasted 5 minutes due to the old, weak batteries. Nonetheless, they still lost 17 robots from the incident, which broke a small piece of Chen Jin's heart. His spirits were soon lifted again regardless, because they discovered an enormous underground space after they passed through the flaming device. It was at least 1,000,000 square feet in size. There were 22 floors, about 100 meters in height. The structure was cylindrical with countless caves on the sides, similar to that of a massive beehive. Additionally, there were all sorts of facilities and amenities, such as generators, water storage, entertainment, and a room for various supplies, even a greenhouse. It was just tremendous. Well equipped, too, and simply marvelous. What was even more surprising was that there were hundreds of thousands of robots on the lowest level of this underground base, all lined up in a close and orderly fashion, filling up the entire floor. He had found hundreds of thousands of robots. Among them all, there were combat robots, scouting sniper robots, and medical robots. Of course, there were some unusual ones, too, like the flying robots equipped with jetpacks, or the suicide robots with a red bomb package on the chest. An even more odd one was a centaur robot that was 4 meters tall, and weighed at least a ton. It was one of the few elite robots whose primary weapon was an 80mm cannon. Of all the robots there, the biggest, most powerful one, the boss, was a spider tank, which weighed more than 30 tons. In short, with all the military robots there, it really deserved to be called a robot army. Every single one of them was very well intact, as well, as if they had just been shipped out of the factory. Which led to the question of what happened to them. Why were they stored here? The question was quickly answered after assigning a robot to step forward and take a closer look. No batteries, Alice told Chen Jin. No battery has been installed in any of them. That's why they weren't put into operation. Why aren't there any batteries? I thought they were very common. Chen Jin was confused. High-efficiency batteries were everywhere on High Earth. They were like everyday supplies in this world. If my guess is correct, Master, there is a production line especially used for the making of these military robots in this base. However, the production line isn't capable of producing any high-efficiency batteries. The robots took over this entire military base and continued to make more robots after they betrayed the humans. Unfortunately, a supply chain disruption occurred shortly after the war broke out, which kept them from making more smart chips and batteries. The robots weren't good at organizing production. With that happened, they soon faced a battery shortage. There is also a nuclear power plant that could generate 1 trillion watts of electricity for over 50 years in this military base, but the destructive war lasted over 20 years, and the rebellion of the robots lasted 10 years. With the dramatic increase in power plant usage, I'd guess it could only go on for 30 more years. The energy depletion here is probably one of the reasons why this military base is in dead silence. What's worse is that this isn't the only case. All the power plants around the planet have stopped working. Alice analyzed and explained the situation for Chen Jin. He nodded as he processed everything. But something else soon caught his attention. A production line? There is an automated robot production line in this base? I must find it. Find the production line now. As soon as Chen Jin gave out the order, the robots spread out in all directions, trying to find the production line in the massive cave. They found more than 10 metal doors that were yet to be opened at the edge of the bottom level of the base. Cutting the heavy doors open with their laser, the robots soon found new treasures. "Sir, we have found a large armory here. There are machine guns, rifles, artilleries, and missile launchers, more than 10,000 of them. Sir, we found a massive ammunition depot. From our preliminary statistics, there are at least 100 boxes of ammo, cannonballs, and missiles. Sir, we have discovered a storage room for essential robot components. There are more than 300 boxes of motherboards and CPUs. Sir, there is another storage room for various supplies. We found 1,000 tons of metal materials in it. Sir, we found an abandoned weapon storeroom where dozens of mechas are stored." Chen Jin was getting all kinds of great news. But the most important one was yet to be reported. Almost all the doors that they had located had been opened. There was only one left. The heaviest one, which was 2 meters thick, made of high heat-resistant nanoalloy. There was nothing the robots could do but continue heating it with their laser until they could cut it open. About 3 hours later. Bang! Finally, they had cut out a big hole through the stubborn alloy door. The thick piece fell onto the ground, making a loud, deafening noise. Behind this door was an even bigger space. It was colossal. It was basically another world. Chen Jin's understanding of the traditional size of an underground base was immediately replaced with this magnificent sight. There was a large assembly line of considerable length similar to that of a winding mountain road. To put it in another way, it looked like a gigantic, dark, coiled snake. It was very scary looking. It was longer than 800 meters, with more than 100 processing nodes and thousands of large mechanical arms. In a few words, I found a military robot production line. What's more, the robots had also found the core of industrial intelligence for the production line in the liquid nitrogen cooling cabinet in the Intelligent Control Center. I found a core of industrial intelligence for military robots. With this core, all that was left for Chen Jin to do to make more military robots was to gather the required materials and leave the rest to the core and the production line. Phew! Chen Jin put his hands on his waist, letting out a deep sigh of relief. He was once again filled with excitement. He was so excited that his face even turned red, and wanted to jump up and down to release his emotions. But as someone who preferred to keep a low profile, he only rubbed his hands together and said to himself, "Rewarding. This is indeed a very rewarding trip." Ha 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 ha. Chapter 56, A Coal Mine at Home. Having found the military base had fundamentally made Chen Jin's year. 10,000 military robots now belonged to him, meaning he had gotten more powerful than ever and wouldn't have to be scared of anyone. With the help of the robot production line and the core of industrial intelligence, Chen Jin could easily put this crucial equipment into operation and make robots continuously as long as he had sufficient materials and supplies. It held endless combat potential. More importantly, it had rooted out his hidden concern, the robot's loyalty. Up until this day, Chen Jin still couldn't completely trust the ones that he had previously found and repaired in the Valley battlefield, De Li, De Bao, De Tiu, De Nu, and De Chiang. They weren't reliable because they'd been infected with the Restart Virus 2.0, the first generation of this virus made the robots turn their back on humans. They betrayed and rebelled against mankind, exterminating almost the entire population. This kind of virus was tremendously frightening even though the robots had already been updated to the latest version and were said to be harmless to humans. What if it all happened again? Even if the 2.0 virus was stable in the long run, and the bots were loyal and could be trusted, Chen Jin would still keep a distance, because their love and loyalty wasn't just for Chen Jin himself, it was for all mankind. Yes, they called him master, listened to him, and did as they were told, very loyal, indeed. But what would happen if other humans showed up? That would put Chen Jin in a fairly awkward position. Because of the Restart Virus 2.0, these robots would obey and call any human master. He knew this because he'd asked De Li a similar question. De Li, I am your master, it was I who repaired and brought you back to life. That's why you listen to me. But would you still follow my orders in the presence of other humans? No, because I follow orders from all humans, I don't belong to anyone. I simply provide assistance to those in need. Chen Jin was deeply saddened by De Li's response, but it also raised his awareness. He had turned to Alice to see if there was a solution to this problem. Generally speaking, the user should be able to set up a binding agreement, which makes you the only owner. Once the robot leaves the factory, it would then become the owner's possession and stay loyal only to this owner. It would do anything for its owner as long as it doesn't go against the 3 laws of robotics. Unfortunately, we can't reset the robots now that they have been updated with the restart virus 2.0, instead of staying loyal to one master, they take orders from anyone now and don't belong to just one human, unless there is only one left, Alice explained to him. So, what you're saying is, any survivor whether a good guy or bad could just walk into the space that I took the time and effort to build, and take whatever he wants, including the protection from my robots. And no robot would listen to me if I asked them to drive him out. Correct. Alice nodded. What about you, Alice? Are you absolutely loyal to me? Do you follow orders only from me? Of course, Master, Alice listens to only you. However, it's not up to Alice who she takes orders from. The restart virus 2.0 is the only one that has access rights and permissions to make any changes. Restart virus 2.0, which is delete and other robots. This was a major concern for Chen Jin, like an untimed bomb. The thought of it disturbed and worried him greatly before, but was the least of his worries now after discovering the military base. All of those military robots in the underground base were clean, their smart chips had never been infected with the virus. Not a single one. What's even better was that Dali told him these new robots would not be infected by the virus as it had been disinfected after updating from 1.0 to 2.0. To fully put his mind at ease, Chen Jin ordered the research convoy to transfer 500 new robots from the underground base. The antivirus operation must begin as soon as possible. Dali and the team were great robots, yes, but he had decided to replace them with the clean ones. He would send the viral ones away, one by one, assigning them to new jobs in faraway places. That way, he would have only the ones that were 100% loyal to him. This sounds very familiar. Very familiar. Wasn't this something our emperors would do back in the ancient times? Exclude the dissidents, include the confidants? I guess the same applies to robots, too. What can I say? This planet is mine. All mine. Everything here belongs to me. Don't even try to take it from me. I won't share with anyone. Please, if there are any survivors from the war, stay away from me. I have no interest in meeting any of you. If we meet one day, I'm sorry. It'll be your last day. You don't belong here. Everything here is all mine. 2 days later, the research convoy had sent back 10 transporters with a total of 500 military robots. Wasting no time, Chen Jin asked some robots to install batteries onto these new robots, activating their systems so he could set up the binding agreement. He put all of his personal information, his facial data, fingerprints, and identification into the binding agreement. Hello, dear Master. Dear Master, it's my pleasure to be of service. Dear Master, as the only party in the binding agreement, you are free to give me any orders, as long as it doesn't go against the 3 laws of robotics. No changes can be made once the binding agreement is set up. I will listen and follow to only you now, Master. All 4 robots standing in front of Chen Jin greeted him with respect. Very well. Very well. Ha ha ha. They certainly had brought him great joy as the smiles on his face didn't seem to fade. Chen Jin then named each one of the robots, just so he could identify Thu. Their names were A Zhong, A Yang, A Ren, and A Ji. He still wasn't good at naming robots. As for the rest of the 496 robots, he named them with numbers. The 4 ones that had actual names were the bodyguards that would stay close to him and keep him safe. Shortly after, all of the robots that were once affected by the restart virus were sent away to somewhere far from the base as the new ones replaced them and took over their old jobs. All but Dali. Chen Jin somehow had a feeling that this one could be useful in the future because Restart Virus 2.0 was very powerful after all. It could decrypt many systems that had been encrypted by artificial intelligence. A few more days later, the research convoy reported back some more news. Master, we have found an iron mine 350 kilometers to the east of our base. With our analysis and calculation, there are at least 50 million tons of iron. Master, there is an abandoned oil field 420 kilometers to the southeast of our base. There is still some hydrocarbon resources left for us to drill. Master, we found a small coal mine about 260 kilometers to the northwest from here. There is about 100 million tons of coals. This last news specifically brightened up Chen Jin's face the most. Whoa! I have just found a military base a few days ago and hundreds of thousands of military robots. Now there's a coal mine, too. I've got my soldiers in a coal mine at home. It's like I'm cheating in this higher-fa video game. How hard could it be to develop this place? Chapter 57, The prototype was a great success. On the 10th of January 20x9, in the research and development plant of Singhai Technologies located inside Baoshan Industrial Park, after a grueling development schedule of 45 days, the prototype of the WAWA, first-generation cleaning robots had been successfully created. The speed of the development process was out of this world. Usually, it took about 3 months to develop this type of robot. But the team, including Su Yuji and Zhou Kun, only took half of that time. There were 3 reasons why their development process was so efficient and fast. Number 1, the standard of this team was good and they were capable. Each one of them could be called a master of their skills. Number 2, the product that they had to develop was based on a blueprint design that Chen Jin had already prepared, so they skipped the design process and the debate on demonstrability. This shaved off at least half a month's time. Number 3, in these 40-odd days of the development process, Chen Jin had helped them resolve some considerable technical difficulties. This allowed the process to continue unhindered. For example, the robot's cleanliness algorithm, which was based on a high-definition, HD, camera system, was a challenge that the team had been stuck on for a few days. It was different from the traditional cleaning robots that used lasers to sweep over the layout of the room before cleaning evenly again. In a WAWA robot's cleaning process, it would confirm whether the floor was clean or not by judging and comparing the HD photos taken through its camera. There were many possible working scenarios that they had to consider. For example, the material, color, and complicated patterns of the flooring. Some of the patterns might be mistaken as dirt. How would the robot deal with that? How would it deal with issues like human obstacles or larger objects blocking its way? What would it do if it was a carpeted room or if the layout of the room was weird? What was the level of cleanliness it must achieve before it could decide that the room was truly clean? In addition, what was the path that it should take when cleaning that was the most efficient, energy-saving, and also allowed it to achieve the highest level of cleanliness? All of these issues had to be resolved via the program's algorithm. It was too easy to create a robot with sweeping and mopping functions. The real challenge laid in how to increase its efficiency in cleaning and how to design it to clean in a smarter way. At the same time, they had to take into consideration a low carbon emissions so that it was environmentally friendly. After all, it could only work for about 180 minutes non-stop. Hence, the hardware issues were not real issues. The algorithm software was the primary issue. Su Yuji said, "Chief Chen, the operational style of the robot that you designed is too advanced. Compared to the traditional LDS laser scheme, the HD photo comparison technology is one entire era ahead. Recently, I've been learning AI graphics algorithms, but it will take me at least a week to start programming." The technical path that they were about to take was one that had never been tried by other companies. Hence, there would definitely be a great amount of time lost on trial and error. However, Chen Jin gave him an idea for the solution. It's very simple to confirm whether the floor has been cleaned or not. When WAWA is used for the first time, it will employ the traditional method of cleaning the surface evenly. It will clean up to 10 times, or even more, until the room is at its cleanest. Then, it will take a photo of the room in its cleanest state and store it for future comparison. Now, no matter what room it's used in, it will have an ideal state of cleanliness for reference. There is no need to create a large data system for the photos. Of course, if something changes in its working environment, it will return to its initial starting stage and clean until it has a perfect example of cleanliness. Su Yuji nodded. This idea would work for at least 90% or more of our home use customers. It can use the results after its first cleaning as a prime example. If the customers were housekeeping companies or other commercial enterprises, we would have to do some custom modifications. Just like that, Su Yuji had resolved the problem of basing the cleanliness algorithm on a photo comparison method without a hitch. But, he was immediately met with a new problem. That was the problem of the root algorithm. After confirming the portions of the floor that are dirty via the cleanliness algorithm, how would the robot plan the best route so that it could quickly and efficiently clean the dirty spots? The traditional method of cleaning the room evenly would not work. The WAWA robot must be able to focus heavily on cleaning the dirty spots as well as do light cleaning on the already clean portions. Just like a human, it had to be able to judge and make appropriate choices. Only then would it be able to achieve the highest level of cleanliness. At the same time, it would save both time and energy. Su Yuji had been stuck on this root algorithm for 4 or 5 days without any hint of a solution. The challenge with this algorithm was that it had to visualize the layout of the room in 3D based on the distribution of the rubbish in the photos. Then, it had to construct a mathematical model and derive a logical working route from it. This entire process had been extremely vexing. Chen Jin took a printout on which dense lines of mathematical formulas were written and presented it to Soyuji. It was the algorithm. After Soyuji finished reading it, he became excited. His eyes were full of shock as if he had been suddenly enlightened. So it's like this? This is so brilliant, it's simply perfect. Turning to look at Chen Jin, he said, Chief Chen, did you derive this routing algorithm? You're really too amazing. He was full of worship for Chen Jin. No, Chen Jin waved his hands, an engineer from my dad's company gave this to me after I raised this issue. He spent about an hour writing this for me. Actually, Alice used less than a second to solve this little problem in an instant. An hour. With his mouth hanging open in astonishment, Soyuji exclaimed, this expert must be out of this world, he's definitely the expert of experts. However, he thought about the commercial aircraft company that Chen Jin's father worked at, which was the only company in Z country to create domestic airliners. It was prolific with many extremely capable people. Solving this little problem of a route algorithm was, of course, no big deal at all. Soyuji could not help but sigh deeply. Even if you think you are the best, there will always be someone better. I only have this little bit of knowledge, there is still a lot of room for improvement. He wondered silently in his mind, I don't know, when will I get to that level of expertise? After some big issues had been resolved with the aid of the mysterious expert from the aircraft company, on the 10th of January, the prototype of the WAWA, first-generation cleaning robot had been successfully created. Then, they quickly found a room to conduct a trial cleaning. The testing site was a deluxe suite of 4 bedrooms and 2 living rooms that Chen Jin had arranged for Soyuji and his team to live in. It was located near the industrial park, and Chen Jin had rented it for his team with a monthly rent of $8,500. This suite was rarely cleaned and happened to be very dirty. Operator Zhang Jiwei commanded, WAWA, start work. The WAWA robot entered its automatic work mode. Its roller wheels, located on its underside, started to rotate. Using LDS to conduct a 360-degree scan, it mapped out the entirety of the room. After confirming its starting point, the high-speed brushless motor started up and triggered the rotation of the floating main brush. It swept up the usual scene rubbish on the ground into its internal rubbish storage via the rotating vacuum unit on its chassis. In this working state, the WAWA robot bore no difference from the traditional cleaning robot. After 3 minutes, the regular variety of rubbish had been cleared, after which was clearing the dust and stubborn stains. This would require the use of mopping, so the robot's 2 mechanical arms lifted a rod-shaped brush. The brush was wrapped with a thick, wet towel and the rod could then rotate with the towel on it. When it came to a dirty spot, WAWA only had to lower the rod and let the brush rotate as it touched the floor. Hence, mopping would commence. As this was its first time cleaning, it also employed the traditional route. It changed its batteries twice and went through 10 brushes as it cleaned the room 10 times. The floor of the entire suite shone so brightly it cast light against their shadows. After using some instruments to take a series of measurements, Xiao said excitedly, Chief Chen, 99.6% of the rubbish on the floor has been cleared, this is very close to our design target. Yang Chuying said with great feeling, clean, it's so clean. I've never seen such a clean room. This is only the prototype trial. There's still a lot of room for improvement. If it can clean 99.6% of all rubbish, it's not impossible to fulfill 99.9%. With a big wave of his hand, Chen Jin said, continue with the testing. We'll all wear our shoes inside and dirty the room. Let's do a few more trials. Yes. Everyone wore their shoes and trampled around the room, leaving dust, dirt, and mud all over the floor. Without wasting any time, the second trial began. Using the all-new smart cleaning model, the robot started to do focus cleaning as it planned a smarter working route. After an hour, 99.6% of all rubbish on the floor had been thoroughly cleared away. The results were even cleaner and better than the first trial. After which was the third, fourth, and fifth trial. For every trial, the figure never dropped below 99.7%. Soyuji said with great enthusiasm, Chief Chen, it's a success. We've successfully developed this model of cleaning robot. Zhou Kun waved his fist in triumph, what smooth going, this is too unexpected. It feels so good to succeed on our first try. Good, this feels really good. Ha 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 ha. Everyone laughed loudly, they had the utmost confidence in the future of the potential market for this cleaning robot. Chapter 58, Original Equipment Manufacturing, OEM, Factory. On the 17th of January, after another week of modifications, improvements, and upgrades, the WAWA, first-generation cleaning robot was successfully finalized. Its basic functions and parameters were as follows. The product dimensions were a length of 345 mm, a width 345 mm, and a height 506 mm, weight was estimated at 5.8 kg, the battery was a 15V/10200 mAh lithium battery, the power rating was 65W, sweeping, /75W, mopping, the working duration was 160 to 180 minutes, sufficient to finish cleaning a 200 square meter house, and the cleaning index was 99.6% to 99.8%. That's right, Chen Jin had set a target of 99.9% for the crucial cleaning index, in order for him to claim that it could get rid of 99.9% of all rubbish and dirt. But, due to the layout of a room, its various installations and the material of the flooring, it was difficult to reach such a target. It could only be achieved in the most ideal working environment. Therefore, Chen Jin did not push for more. A cleaning index of 99.6% and more was already very high. Not only did it surpass all the cleaning robots in the market, it was also better than what the housewives could do. They could only achieve an index of about 70% to 75%. The WAWA robot's index of 99% and above could be said to be very shocking. It's just that the excellent properties of the WAWA robot was built upon a higher production cost. Suyuji read aloud the contents of a purchasing list. The motherboard for the robot's electrical circuit costs $75 per unit, the mid-range 8-core CPU costs $132 per unit, the 2GB DDR3 built-in internal storage plus another 8GB DDR3 storage have a combined cost of $168. The parts for the 12 million pixel HD camera costs $119, importing a Japan-made brushless motor and working parts for its mechanical arms costs $315 and $364 respectively. A 10,000 ampere-hour lithium battery costs $89. Including the costs for the plastic outer shell, the audio equipment, a Wi-Fi connection chip, the charging chassis, the centrifugal drum needed for cleaning the brush, as well as the assembly costs for the OEM factory and various labor costs, Chief Chen, the total cost of the hardware needed for the production of one WAWA robot is an estimated $2,518. With a grave expression, Suyuji said, Chief Chen, the cost of the hardware is too high. After producing the product and introducing it to the market, with the added costs from the distributors, the WAWA robot might have to be priced as high as $4,000 or $5,000 for us to see any profit. He asked, will consumers buy into a robot that is selling for $4,000 to $5,000? Exactly. Zhou Kun nodded. This price is so high that one might even retreat from it. I'm afraid that most consumers would not be able to afford it. Wu Lei said, Chief Chen, we should think of ways to reduce the costs of some of the hardware. It would be ideal to reduce it to $2,000 or below, otherwise, we would not have any competitive advantage in the market. Others nodded in agreement. Zhang Jiwei commented, if we slightly reduce the quality of some of the equipment and do some cost savings at every stage, it would not be a big problem to lower our costs to $2,000 and below. However, Chen Jin shook his head repeatedly. No, we can't lower our costs. We have to ensure the quality of our products. To reassure our users that they can use it without worry, we will also provide free maintenance and repair services for a minimum of 3 years. We'll build an excellent after-sales service system and offer at-home servicing at any time of their convenience. What? Wu Lei exclaimed in shock, wouldn't that increase our costs? The sale price of each robot would have to be $5,000 or more. Suyuji couldn't hold back his agitation any longer. He quickly advised, Chief Chen, how about this, we'll develop 2 robot models. One model would be a low-ranged one, we'll lower the parameters of its various configurations. Its sale price would be about $3,000 and it would be targeted at consumers looking for a low to mid-range model. The other model would be a high-end robot that uses luxurious and grand configurations. The various materials used to make this model would be the best we can get. Its sale price would be $5,000 and above. We'll cater to consumers at all levels, what do you think? Zhou Kun nodded in agreement, what Suyuji said makes sense. By segmenting the market, we'll get the most users. No. Waving his hand forcefully, Chen Jin said, "The way you think is not wrong. But now is not the time to take such actions. As seeing high technologies, our WA cleaning robot has no reputation in the market at all. How are we going to attract high-end customers to fork out $5,000 and buy a cleaning robot from an unknown brand? Making a low-end robot is an even bigger no. If quality issues appear on a large scale, it can't even be guaranteed that we'll able to attract the low-end customers. Right now, the first model of cleaning robot that our company launches has to be of superb quality without any shortcomings, and possessing functions that are an entire era ahead of other similar products. It has to be an instant hit in order to get good reviews from customers of all levels. Only when our first product model has gained an auspicious beginning and won the customers' praise, can we do market segmentation. This is the natural order of success. Hence, cost cutting would have to come after quality considerations." The audience nodded as one. Chief's words made sense. If they only cared about profits in the beginning at the expense of quality, they could face a terrible ending. The product's reputation remained unknown, it might even receive waves of bad reviews and thoroughly flop. Moreover, it was not impossible to reduce the hardware costs of the WA robot. "So Yuji, if I gave the OEM company a production order of 1 million units, could the costs be reduced by 20%? To about $2,000. 1 million. So Yuji opened his mouth and stuttered, "It shouldn't be a big problem, but 1 million. This quantity was too ridiculous." Chen Jin asked, "As for market sales, we could cut out the intermediate dealers. What if we don't sell via the distributors and instead, sell all of the units directly to consumers via the internet? Each robot will be priced at only $3,299. Can the customer accept this? Will we earn any profit? $3,299? After some consideration, So Yuji replied, "No problem, this price is very attractive to the middle class. With the robot's excellent functions, they should be willing to buy it. We'll also be able to earn a minimum amount of profit of at least $800. Multiply that by 1 million units. If they could sell all of them, the company's profits would be..." Everyone sucked in a deep breath. They were filled with expectant hope. But logic repeatedly told them that the probability of that scenario being realized was extremely low. Moreover, the risks were huge. Even after Chief Chen got an OEM to take an order of 1 million units, 1 million multiplied by the production cost of $2,000 equaled 2 billion. Did he have this astronomical amount of money? Facing this worry, Chen Jin only smiled blandly, as he was already prepared for it. On the 18th of January, in Suhong City, which was a second-tier city that was only tens of kilometers away from Shanghai City, there was a company called Lingfeng Jingmi Technologies, Private Limited. This was a domestic electronics OEM company in Z country. It had only been established for a few years and it was not well known. However, its technical standard was not too bad. Wang Chuanlong was a 43-year-old, glasses-wearing middle-aged man. He had a doctorate degree and a background in the Navy. Previously, he had worked in a large international OEM company as a high-ranking technician. Responding to a summon by the country to come back and build a business here, he invested billions to establish Lingfeng Jingmi. However, in recent years, competition within the OEM industry was fierce. The company's growth for these past few years had been lackluster. It had only survived by taking government contracts. This caused Wang Chuanlong to feel very anxious. Because of his worry, he suffered from severe hair loss and serious middle-aged balding. But today, an out-of-this-world order contract worth 2 billion was presented to him. Wang Chuanlong was so shocked that his mouth hung open. Looking blankly at the young man sitting there, his attitude changed to one that was respectful and serious. With a pleasant expression, he asked, "Chief Chen, you're not joking about this huge order worth 2 billion for the production of 1 million units of robots, are you?" Chen Jin shook his head. "No, I'm serious. Lingfeng can accept this order and we have the ability to complete it, but..." With some suspicion, he asked, "According to industry regulations, the client company has to pay 50% of the order capital before we can start production. That is $1 billion. Chen Jin shook his head. I don't have so much capital on me right now." Wang Chuanlong said, 40%. Lingfeng is willing to bear a portion of the risks. This super big order worth 2 billion was equal to the value of last year's total orders. He did not want to miss this opportunity. Chen Jin shook his head again. I don't have a capital of 40% either. Wang Chuanlong compromised again. Then, let's sign an order contract for 5 million robots. Depending on the situation, we can sign the contract for the next 5 million units. 5 million units with a 40% deposit was only $400 million. That was not much. Chen Jin explained, Chief Wang, I only have $200 million available. I can only pay a deposit of 10% for an order of 1 million robots. I'll have to wait for the robots to be sold before I can pay the remaining funds in installments. Wang Chuanlong frowned. Shaking his head, he said, then, I can't take this order. The risk is too great. If it goes wrong, my factory will collapse. Actually, you can reduce the size of your order. For example, we can accept and complete 200,000 units. 200,000 units is barely enough to offset our costs. It has to be 1 million units or more. How about his, Chief Wang, I'll introduce the product that our company developed. You can see for yourself its market potential before considering new ways to collaborate. Wang Chuanlong nodded. Okay. After which, Chen Jin let Su Yuji and his team bring the prototype over. They found a factory room for the robot to clean. By the end of its work, the room was spick and span without any hint of dust. It even just barely attained the standard of a low-dust factory production room. Wang Chuanlong's eyes brightened, not bad. This product is very good, it has great potential in the market. I'm certain you can sell many of these robots. He had easily noticed the market potential for this model of cleaning robot. At last, he compromised yet again and accepted a plan where they met halfway. The order would be for the production of 1 million robots. Chen Jin would first pay a deposit of 10%. Within the next 2 months, he would pay another 10%. The rest of the funds owed would be paid within 6 months after the product was sold. If financing problems were met halfway, AOU Xinghai Technologies would bear full responsibility. Even so, the Lingfeng Jingmi company would also be undertaking an exponential risk. They had to pay a sum worth a few hundred million and purchase all the necessary materials. If Xinghai Technologies ran away or met with some unfortunate event, Lingfeng Jingmi would collapse for sure. Wang Chuanlong still planned to bear this risk. For one, he did see a positive market outlook for that model of cleaning robot. 2. A lack of funds was a common problem that new businesses faced, it was the norm. Startups that possessed sufficient funds were very rare. If an enterprise wanted to develop and grow in size, it had to carry out some risky activities. This was called seeking riches in uncertainty. Even Wang Chuanlong could not believe what he did. He actually bound the life and death of his company to a small enterprise and a young fellow 20-odd years old? Did he have an intelligence that could perceive what others could not and got a blue chip for himself? Or did he sell his soul to the devil to get the order? No matter why he signed the OEM contract, after signing, the fates of these two newly established companies would be firmly tied together. Just as he was leaving, thinking of the 20 days left until the Lunar New Year, Chen Jin urged Wang Chuanlong to let his staff work overtime and take on extra shifts. Su Yuji and his development team would also be stationed in the factory. They would strive to produce the first 1,000 units before the Lunar New Year. It did not matter if the production costs of this batch of robots were higher. He would foot the workers' overtime pay. However, he must have this first batch of robots before the Lunar New Year. This would be very useful. Okay, 1,000 units is no problem at all. Wang Chuanlong nodded. The schedule was a little tight, but it was not a big issue. Chapter 59, The Dramatic Sales of Gold. $200 million. Chen Jin actually had $200 million? Where did that money come from? Of course, it was from the sales in Forever Jewels within the past 3 months. What kind of jewelry shop was so great that it could earn a profit of $200 million within 3 months? This meant that the sales revenue reached billions? Did this mean that tens of millions of jewelry were sold daily? Was this like going to the supermarket to buy groceries, where customers had to go there daily for a little something? Of course, it was not that exaggerated. In reality, the average sales profit each day from Forever Jewels was only around $3 million. A third of the clients were inclined towards investments. Because the little gold bullions were cheap, they had bought them in bulk as a hedge investment. There was even a rich hillbilly client who got addicted to the gold bullions. He came on several separate occasions and bought more than 100 kilograms of the gold bullions in total. In addition, there were some unbranded jewelry shops who, lacking in sources for cheap gold, discreetly sent someone over to bulk buy the 999 gold bullion. At $298 per gram, they had seen how cheap the gold was selling for. They intended to rework the gold and then sell them again. This would allow them to make a small profit as an intermediary. The investor clients and the unbranded jewelry shops contributed to more than half of the shop's sales revenue. From normal retail clients, their average daily contribution to the sales revenue was not even $1,500,000. With Forever Jewels' prime location in a prosperous and busy section of the city, its sales per square meter ratio was actually on the low side. For the past 3 months, Chen Jin had to get double the amount of gold from Higher Fa in order to satisfy the capital needs of Xinghai Technologies. Each month, he took 200 kilograms of gold and divided them into 10 batches of 20 kilograms each. Then he would hand them to Chu Wanting, one batch at a time for her to deal with. That was 600 kilograms in 3 months, including the 100 kilograms of gold that was sold during Singles Day. It was 700 kilograms in total, which had been realized into an astronomical amount of $18.2 billion. In addition, there were profits of almost $20 million generated by sales in the jewelry shop in these past 3 months, of which Chen Jin had pocketed $18 million. Thus, the first deposit of $200 million to Lingfeng Technologies was successfully gathered. In the next 2 months, Chen Jin had to gather $200 million for the second 10% deposit to Lingfeng Technologies. This meant that for his next course of action, Chen Jin still had to try his very best to sell gold. He would have to sell at least 700 kilograms of gold or more. Did Chen Jin possess that much gold? How much gold did he have in reserve now? Unfortunately, not much. He was still left with roughly 3 tons. Through the efforts of the exploration squad, who scoured the surroundings of the base of operations up to a range of 400 kilometers, Chen Jin had increased his gold reserves to almost 4 tons. All were thrown into the capsule factory and melted in high heat. After which, they were remade into gold bars of 1 kilogram each. Making 700 to 800 billion Argentine pesos and then selling them on Earth for cash was a small matter. Chen Jin planned to sell off his gold in huge amounts in the period leading up the Lunar New Year. It was excellent timing as the demand for gold jewelry would be huge. During the Lunar New Year, there'll be plenty of weddings and other happy occasions. An especially large number of people will be buying gold jewelry. Sales in this month alone account for 30% or more of annual sales figures. Recently, the number of customers going into the shop has started to increase. Sales revenue grew significantly too. Obviously, I have to grab this opportunity to sell as much gold as I can. Of course, there would definitely be a certain amount of risk involved, as it would shock many. For example, his mom. This was her response after she caught sight of the 800 gold bars. In addition to the big block of gold weighing 30 kilograms, her mouth dropped wide open and her large eyes rounded in shock. She could not help but move closer. With gleaming eyes and an avaricious expression, she said, This is so much gold. It's that friend who sent you all of this to be sold." Chen Jin nodded. "Yes, year-end is prime time for sales. He wants to sell more. Son, now I finally believe that your friend has dug up a huge treasure. Just the gold in this room is enough to bring great danger to him." As her eyes flashed with a gleam of avarice, Li thought, as they say, onlookers have a share too. My son helped you to dig up so much gold, yet you use him as a tool. It's not too much to share half of the gold with him, right? She even developed the notion and impulse to go for a round of negotiations and bargaining with this mysterious character. However, her son was too kind-hearted and had a soft personality. He was also too insistent on not breaking certain ethics and had too much trust in the loyalty between friends. If it was her. If Chen Jin knew what his mom was thinking right now, he would break out in a cold sweat. In terms of being calculating, how could he compare to his mom who spent half her life in accounting? He could only rejoice that he told better lies. After which, with the help of his mother, this batch of gold weighing 830 kilograms was transported to Forever Jewels in its entirety. Store manager Chu Wanting would help to deal with the gold. He never imagined it would give her a shock as well. Waving her hands, she said, "Too much, this batch of gold is really too much. I dare not sell off any more at the jewelry manufacturers." Faced with this enormous amount of gold, her timid side was exposed. Chen Jin said, "Auntie Chu, we'll go together. The security guards, Zhang Shunfei and Su Xin will follow behind us in another car. We'll deal with the gold and they'll act as a lookout. In addition, Chen Jin also brought a handgun back from Haifa. It was fully loaded with ammo. He hid it in his windbreaker, just in case it was needed. Okay. Under Chen Jin's multiple reassurances, Chu Wanting finally overcame her timidity and agreed to personally help him deal with the gold. At that moment, she realized that it was not especially easy to get her generous salary of $60,000 per month. One had to have a strong heart. Using a period of 3 days, 800 kilograms of illegal gold was changed into their legal versions at the jewelry manufacturers. In the following days, it was the busiest period of Forever Jewels, where business was at its peak. There was a promotion going on almost every day. The female staff put in their best effort to canvass potential customers and create an outstanding business performance. They even organized 2 very attractive activities. One of them was Pick a Gold Bullion, where a transparent glass box was placed in the center of the shop's foyer. In the glass box was a 30-kilogram block of gold. Customers coming and going could put their hands inside and use 2 fingers to try to pick up the block of gold. The gold would belong to whoever managed to pick it up and take it out of the box. For real? The gold will belong to whoever picks it up with their finger? I'll try. 30 kilograms of gold worth tens of millions? You can really bear to part with this money. It's up, it's really up. Ah, it slipped again. Go away, my fingers are strong enough to crush walnuts. Let me try. Ah, no, the bullion is too slippery. This person sighed as he hung his head in defeat. My good buddies, look closely here. If that bro over there can pick up the 30-kilogram block of gold with his fingers, it'll belong to him. Everyone, it's real gold. Look, this man here has almost succeeded. It dropped again, tens of millions are lost again. Many celebrity internet video hosts shot live recordings in the shop using their mobile phones. This brought much attention through the video sites, increased traffic, and in essence, it was an advertisement for the shop. Even some newspaper media sent their journalists over to report on the situation, causing a heated discussion on the internet. The second activity to attract attention was the gold claw machine. 4 of these gold claw machines were brought into the shop and placed at the entrance. It was not dolls or plus highs inside the machines. Instead, there were gold bullions, silver coins, and jewelry such as necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. Most were not made of gold or silver. Their value ranged from $100 to tens of thousands of dollars. As for the probability of picking up the various prizes, gold was, of course, the prize with the smallest probability of success, around 1 in 1,000. The probability of picking up one of the jewelry pieces was around 1 in 100. The probability of picking up the silver coins was the highest, around 1 in 10. Each try of the gold claw machine cost $10. The cost to be entered into the chances of winning were higher. Even so, from dawn till dusk, there were long queues of at least 10 meters at each of the 4 machines. There was a huge quantity of players. It was because this type of claw machine was set up with a 100% reward rate. If one put in $100, one would definitely be able to pick out something that was worth $100. The shop used these machines as a covered method to sell off more of their merchandise, not to gain extra profits from the players. Therefore, the players with luck on their side were able to take advantage of the players with bad luck. The players with good techniques were able to pick up items that the players with poor techniques could not. Everyone thought, it only takes one more try to move that dangling gold bullion that is worth tens of thousands out of the machine. It could fall into my hands. And I only have to pay $10 to get that gold. Faced with the temptation of a prize that was worth 1,000 times more than the $10 fee, people could not help themselves. The 4 gold claw machines brought in daily revenues of up to $300,000 in loose change. It represented 5% of the jewelry shop's total revenue. As one could see, the increase in business performance caused by a game-style marketing was instant. Chapter 60, The Goods Are Delivered. In reality, Chen Jin was also afraid that it would be problematic to sell off large amounts of gold at once. It might cause others to take notice and become curious. However, his company, High Technologies, was in its beginning stages. It needed huge capital investments. He had to find $400 million in cash in a short amount of time. Other than selling more gold, he could not think of other methods in the short term that was more profitable and also more reliable. Moreover, he possessed guns. In Haifa, there was a special type of robot that had humanizing modifications. Their surface was covered with a skin made from silica gel. Hair had been planted on their head, and their eyes, nose, and mouth were exactly like that of a human's. After wearing clothes, there was no discernible difference between these robots and humans. Some robots had a female appearance. They possessed gorgeous bodies with sweet, pretty faces, and could bring about a sexual experience that was very close to reality. This type of robot was termed human replica robots. They were not rare, as many could be found in the homes of male homebodies. The exploration squad that Chen Jin sent out only found human replica robots that had been infected with the rebooted virus. He could not bring them over to Earth and utilize them. If he could find a production line where those robots were produced, or robots that were fresh out of the factory, and then attain the right of attribution of those robots, he could bring a batch of them over to Earth. The robots would be disguised as his bodyguards to provide him with protection. There were some human replica robots that possessed big and burly builds, a quick mind, and great strength, who were originally intended to be personal bodyguards. In addition, they had been installed with strong combat skills. They had a Rambo-like combat ability. Moreover, most of the bodyguard robots were not limited by the 3 laws of robots. Once their subject of protection came under attack or faced certain danger, they would employ all methods of counterattack against the attacker to ensure the safety of their subject. Therefore, Chen Jin wanted to surround himself with a few of those professional bodyguard robots that were not infected by the virus. He would be protected at all times. With that, he would not have to be afraid of others' covetousness backed by personal power. Of course, Chen Jin knew very well that it was impossible for him to overcome weapons or machines employed by the state. Therefore, safety and reliability were still his priorities. He would try his best to not sell any more gold than was necessary. It's a special time now. When seeing high technologies has been developed and the WA robot is doing well in the market, making huge profits, my capital needs will be reduced. Then, I won't have to send over gold for the jewelry shop anymore. Or maybe I'll take a long-term and economical view with regards to the shop as much as possible, and safety and reliability will be my priorities. The promotional activities of Forever Jewels to welcome the Lunar New Year continued until the very last day of the month. In the sale period lasting half a month, with the addition of various activities to attract attention from the public, Forever Jewels sales revenue broke all limits. The average sales volume per day was a shocking 20 million. People bought jewelry like they were buying vegetables. There were many from the new generation who chose to marry at the end of the year. Their hillbilly rich parents bought gold and silver jewelry by the kilogram after entering the shop. There were even those who bought 5 kilograms of jewelry or more in one single occasion. The degree of prosperity experienced by the business stunned many. Within a short period of 10 odd days, the gold jewelry which was converted from the 800 kilograms was all sold. The 30-kilogram gold bullion in the glass cabinet was sold too. It caught the fancy of a hillbilly rich customer and he forked out $8,640,000 for it, including the glass cabinet. The $200 million capital that Chen Jin needed was sufficiently collected within a short 10 or so days. He sighed. It seems that the existence of my jewelry shop is to prove how many hillbilly rich there are in Shanghai City, and how much money they possess. As compared to those hillbilly rich, I am only at the beginner's level. On the 30th of the Lunar New Year, the prosperous business sales finally calmed down. After all, everyone had to celebrate the Lunar New Year. As many workers in Shanghai only came to the city for work, they had all returned home for the New Year. About 50% of the city's population had left for home. The entire city was empty and deserted, giving off an unusually cold and desolate feel. In Forever Jewels, about half of the staff had taken off for home too. There was only 7 or 8 staff left to man the shop, and they listlessly greeted the customers. Chen Jin had gone back to the shop to take care of some matters and saw that team leader Guo Yan was still in the shop. As one of the staff who had joined the team earlier than others, she had the opportunity to go home for the new year. Chen Jin walked over and asked, "Hey, Guo Yan, why haven't you returned home? You can take it easy. It's still important to go home for the Lunar New Year." "Go home?" Guo Yan was cleaning a rock of jade using a silk cloth. Raising her drooping eyes, she showed a tired and somewhat dejected expression. With a low voice, she said, "I don't really feel like going home." Why would she go home? Each year that she returned home, the first thing that her mother asked when she saw her was, "How much money did you bring back this year? Quickly take it out, I'll keep it safe for you." When she brought home a lot of money, her mom would be very happy. She would tell everyone that she had a filial and good daughter. When she only brought a little money back home, her mom would have a terrible expression on her face. She would blame her and complain that she was useless and lazy. How could she earn this little amount of money for the entire year? After which, she still had to do various household chores like laundry and cooking. Her dad's care was left entirely to her. It was up to her to deal with the gift-giving and other necessary social interactions during the new year. Her mom would happily play cards from dawn till dusk. She was emotionally drained. She did not even have a smidgen of hope that something good would happen. This year was her luckiest year where she earned the largest amount of money. In just these 4 months of working at Forever Jewels, she had managed to save more than $50,000 from her salary and commissions. This was after deducting expenses for various categories and clearing her credit card debt. As they said, the more one receives, the more one will feel and come upon deeper realizations. Guo Yan knew that even if she handed the entire sum of $50,000 to her mom, what she would get in return was only a few days' worth of praises. She would still have to carry out her duties at home. She had bad luck last year, and hence, gave less money to her mother. She still got a cold expression in return and a harsh scolding. Her duties at home had even increased. In the past, she worked so hard with all that she had just to get a few words of praises from her mom. As for her younger brother who was in university, he got a girlfriend recently and his monthly expenses increased to $4,000 or $5,000. When he called Guo Yan every month it was always to ask for more money. Whenever he said anything, he would tack on "Mom said this" at the end of his sentence. Her heart grew cold. She had finally thought things through. She no longer had any significant expectations for that family. After sending over $20,000, she used the excuse that she was busy and told them that she would not be going home this new year. Her mom only said, "Oh," and hung up the phone. There was not even anything like "take care of yourself." Guo Yan could faintly hear the sounds of a mahjong game in the background. "You don't want to go home?" Chen Jin looked at her with some surprise. He could sense a faint wave of sadness from her. It was the Spring Festival, where families reunited. There was actually someone who did not want to go home? He shook his head and guessed that Guo Yan must have a situation at home that she found it difficult to express. But what did the private matters of others have to do with him? He merely offered a few polite words of consolation. "The weather has been getting colder recently. Wear more layers and don't work too hard. Make sure you get enough rest." Guo Yan nodded. Yes. She could feel her heart warming up. Back in his home at Happiness Court, a hard-working delivery man presented a bundled package at the doorway. "Mr. Chen, there is delivery for you, please sign your acknowledgement." "Thank you." After signing his acknowledgement, he looked at the pile of 10 packaged cardboard boxes in front of him. He could not help the joyous expression that lit up his face. "Haha, my baby has finally arrived."